kicked out and you can't get back in for whatever reason, it's going to be recorded tomorrow. Unless I get it sooner, I will send you the link. I highly recommend that you download. It's going to be recorded today, so I will remember, because at 3:59 I woke up with a panic attack that I did not hit the record button. But it will be recorded and you'll be able to download it, which I recommend you download it to your system so that you can view it better. If you just click on the link, it's a little grainy, I find. So if you download it, you'll be able to see it much more clearly. The other thing is, this doesn't stop here. You have my email address, you have my telephone number. I'm on the East Coast, so don't call me before 7 o'clock in the morning, and don't call me after 9 o'clock at night, because I'm usually in bed. That doesn't mean I'm asleep, but I'm usually crawling in bed at 9 o'clock at night. So, because I'm old. But I want you to know that you can reach out to me if you have questions about the piece, because this is not about you coming and me talking to you or at you. I want you to learn. I want you to understand, especially these paints, because they're my all-time favorite paints. I want you to understand them better, and then the technique of layering and dry brushing and all the fun things that we're going to do today. So please know that if you've got a question or you've got a problem, and I've gotten from the beginning setting things out with, the supply list and things like that. I mean, please guys, email me, or call me if it's the last resort. I want you to get what it is that I'm teaching you, and it not just be like, okay, well, that was a one and done type thing. So I'm here. Okay. Just so you know. It's nice to hear you laugh, Lana, because I was going to say, when I taught the Zoom classes with Chris Hoy, the first day afterwards, I did my bike class. I was totally freaked out because I couldn't hear anybody. And it's like, I'm talking to my computer and I don't hear any sounds, and there's no communication, which in a class you hear, wow, or, ooh, that was awesome, or I need help, and I read the faces, because I pretty much know where you've sat, especially if you've come to my classes before. It's one of those things that I can't read the room. I can't tell if you're sitting there struggling or if you're frustrated or aggravated. So it was hard for me the first day. By the third class, I'm like, okay, we are connecting with people all over the world. We had people from Australia, Canada. It was just amazing. And again, I have 4 people in this class that are from Canada. So welcome to our international viewers and painters. Excited that you guys are here. A couple little things. Again, if you get kicked out, try to log back in. Lana is on, Lana Lamb. If you're not familiar with her, make sure that you go to her Facebook page, Lana Lamb Designs. And so she's done a lot of Zoom classes and webinars. And if you've not checked out her YouTube channel, please go and do that. But when she talked, asked me about the class and is there room? And I'm like, oh my gosh, will you please come and help me? So she jumped at, the first yes. I mean, immediately she said yes. So I adore you, Lana. Thank you so very much. She is in the chat. So if you have any problems, questions, whatever, you can put it in the chat. If there are several of you asking the same question, she'll go ahead and ask, and say it out loud so that you guys can hear. Same thing with Tracy Moreau. Right away, as soon as I put it out, she goes, I'm signing up. I'm doing that class. And I'm like, okay, but do you want to help with the chat? Because again, I'm teaching. I can't look at that and answer you guys and then, teach. Oh, yeah. So, and then Barb Perkle, who always travels with me to conventions and usually sets up my class and helps me prep and do all that other stuff. She was like, well, I don't have these supplies, a couple of supplies I'm out. And I'm like, so she's in my studio with me. And if I could turn my camera around, I would, but it's planted on my computer. So she's in my studio with me. And I told her if she makes any noise, she's going to have to get up and leave because I can't mute her. She's live with me here. So anyway, are you guys ready to get started? That was a mouthful, huh? Say hi, Lana. Say hi, Tracy.
Hi, ladies.
Okay, so don't forget the chat is there. I'm going to, Lana's already recording. I love you. Oh my gosh, I love you. So I'm going to flip my camera around so that I can show you guys, which right now is a little washed out. But when I put my piece there, hopefully it won't be. And if it is, I'm going to take one of my lights away. Let's see if we can. All right, so Hopefully you've done the prep up to this point, which is your wood canvas. Now let me tell you why I like to work on those wood canvas panels. They are, they're sturdy. So whereas a canvas gives, you're going to get that fabric that gives. And hold on, because I am going to turn that overhead light off.
Oh, much better.
That's better.
So when it's on, I look better, but that's not what it's about right now. Okay, so hopefully you've gotten to this, which is the wooden canvas. Now, when I ordered these, I got these canvases, wood canvases from Walnut Hollow. And they are a little pricey, but Amazon, because I have another class, I thought I need more. So I went to Amazon and I ordered 5 of them for like $24.95. And I just did that yesterday. So, but hopefully you're gessoed and you're dry and you have your pattern on, and over that with an Identipen. And the reason I do that is because I like to work in layers. I like to add the color on top so that I can still see my pattern. The Identipen is going to help you do that. Okay. So, Lana, are you hearing me okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, great. So let me show you a trick. Not necessary, but it's a cool trick that I like to share, especially when using the shimmer misters. Okay. This is the other thing. Let me go ahead and tell you guys. If you are substituting colors, just for the time's sake, I won't be able to go to my list and look and see what I told you as a substitute color. So in your packet, I listed all of those. If you decided to substitute a color for what I've painted with originally and what I'm going to paint with today, go ahead and have that out so that you can look at it. So when I say, you know, cad orange hue, you know, bright orange or whatever orange color you grabbed. All right. This is about the only product that there really is no substitute for, because it is a totally different product than any regular acrylic paint. However, if you have the blue, like a desert turquoise, mermaid tail, anything like that, that for the background, you just want to make sure that you water it down. Okay, because this is very, very transparent and very liquidy. It doesn't reconstitute. It just is a phenomenal product. So, but my trick is I love to get these grocery bags. My husband's retired military, so we get them at the base. But if you open it and then cut one side of it off, you can make a portable spray booth.
That is so awesome.
So that will give you an area to spray so that you're not spraying your walls, because my first studio in our house was my dining room, and one whole wall has nothing but spray and splatter and paint on it. So then you can stick your piece right inside. If you don't have that, you just want some paper towels around, okay? And regardless, you want some paper towels around because we're going to be wiping off some of this paint. So let me grab a couple paper towels and a water bottle. So I told you to have like a little spritzer water bottle. These are great from Walmart. If you don't have a spritzer or a water bottle, just take the largest brush you have and get your canvas wet. Okay, so I'm just going to spray mine. And I did go ahead and do my sides. If you did not do your sides and you have this gallery sized canvas, whether it's the wooden one or not, you can paint that now or you can paint it later. But I'm just going to give it a nice little generous spritzing. And then with my mister, just going to spray it up. Let's spray it up. I'm going to shake it up because this one is a shimmer mister, which means there's little tiny particles that are in the liquid that's going to give it that shimmer and glisten. So, and then I'm just going to spray it. And again, with my mister, go ahead and spray it to move that paint around. Don't have a spritzer, just use your brush.
That's your water, right?
This is my water, mister, yes. Because what I'm doing is I'm thinning down that mister even more, and then I'm going to hold it up. Now, I'm not sure how it's looking for you guys. My computer screen looks like that's very dark blue. This is a very beautiful turquoise color. So, but you want to move that paint. So if it's not moving for you, spritz it with a little more water. Move it around left and right, up and down. Until you get it the way you like it. Now, I did try to keep it a little bit darker at the top, maybe not so light at the top. Not that it has to be the darkest there, it's just when we put those rays of light coming in, they'll show up a lot better when you have some of that color at the top. So, and you know, kind of get it to how you want it. I'm gonna lay a paper towel down and I'm just gonna tap it here and there. So I just wadded up a paper towel. I'm just gonna kind of tap it here and there. I'm not really laying it, I'm just tapping it so that it picks up some of that paint. And then where I am gonna lift up some of this paint is right here in the fish. So look how easy that will just move and come up. We aren't gonna remove all of it, and that's okay. That's gonna add to the pretty blue of our fish. Okay. Again, what I love about the background and the way we put that gesso on is depending on how that mister hits it, you get all these gorgeous spots in your background. So where it's a little bit darker, you're gonna have, I'm just gonna move this so you can see it a little better. You're going to have some darker spots, some lighter spots. Oh, yeah. And it just adds to your overall finished piece where you get the darker, the lighter, where you maybe touched it with a paper towel and it lifted it. So once you get that done, you want to take a hair dryer or a heat tool. My preferred one, I used to always use the like heat embossing tools, but I got this one from Chris Hoy recently, and it's the Ranger. And what I love about it is how quiet it is. So I don't know if you guys can hear that. It's super quiet. And so it's nice, you know, especially teaching, to not have one that sounds like, you know, a jet engine and it's about to take off. But what I want to do is I just kind of want to move this around and dry my background, especially the fish.
It must be a quiet heat gun. I can't even hear it.
I mean, right? It's, and I have it muted or anything. It's just so quiet. It does take a little touch longer to dry than like the heat embossing tool. But I just love how not loud it is. But again, you want to especially make sure that your fish is pretty dry. Give it the nice little, you know, touch test. And then your background as much as possible. The thing with the misters, it will not reconstitute. So once it's dry, it's dry. It's not going anywhere. Unless you want it to. Because a little hand sanitizer works great to lift and to move. If I wanted to add a really pretty background, like stencil design in there, I could take a stencil brush with a little hand sanitizer on it, lay it down, move it. While it's wet, you can use a paper towel or a baby wipe, and it'll move for you. But once it's dry, it's pretty set.
That's a good tip with the hand sanitizer.
Let me tell you, I used to repaint so many things, and a stiff brush like a Mezzaluna, or one of those watercolor brushes like a Scrubby or something. If you've got a little area that needs to be like tweaked or moved or fixed, if you want to take off StazOn ink pad, or if you want to take off Identipen, hand sanitizer, which is kind of a hot commodity right now, so we don't want to waste it. Okay, but just kind of give that the little touch test. And I'm checking hands at the door when we're done with class. If you don't have paint on your hands, that means you didn't have fun, so I'm gonna make you sit down and put paint on your hands, okay? That's what baby wipes and hand sanitizer are great for. All right, get mine up here. So now you see why we put the fish on first and outlined it with the Identipen, because now we can still see our fish design. The blue, I don't mind that much blue. I just want to make sure that it's dry, because now we're going to paint a thin layer with a wet brush with gesso. Now, if you don't have gesso, and I know several of you didn't that emailed me, you can use white paint, but you want to make sure that your brush is wet, because we still want to be able to see the design and the outline of our fish. So I'm going to put out on my palette. So while you guys are finishing that, I'll show you I typically work on one of two palettes. A gray palette, and this is the Richardson. You see colors truer on a gray background, so I love to use gray palette paper, okay? And I found a stash in my studio when I cleaned up. I also love these palettes. This is the Peel, it's a peelable palette. Martin F. Weber used to put it out, and the name left me right now, but it starts with an M. Anyway, and I cover mine with press and seal. And you can write on it with your pen and you know what colors, and then when you're done, if you want to save your colors, Americana, oils, whatever, you can put press and seal over it. And if you're done, you can just rip off the press and seal and you're ready to go. So, but it's a hard plastic with gripper feet on the box, on the bottom. Anyway, so love this palette. Palette knife, it's always best if you take your gesso out of the container instead of sticking a wet brush in your gesso, because you never know what that water is that you're putting in there, and it could contaminate it and make it mold. So I always suggest take your gesso out with a palette knife first, and then go from your palette with your gesso. Move that out of the way. So I'm going to use my 3/4, and of course, if y'all know me, most of you do, my go-to brushes are my Dynasty Black Gold. So this is just, this one I grabbed actually is an 18, but I typically use a 20, which is very similar to a 3/4 flat. And so I'm going to rinse my brush, tap it off on my water basin, come over and load generously with my gesso or your white paint, and we're going to paint in the fish.
You go for a walk? I'm going for a walk. You're going for a walk? There you go. That's fine. Yeah. Go have fun.
One of your kids leaving, Tracy?
What? Yeah, it's, I'm talking to the dog. I keep forgetting the mic is on.
So just go right into those little fins, you know, where it's, I'm up on the chisel edge, but you just want to make that nice and smooth. If you have a little texture, it's not going to hurt anything. You're actually going to have texture from the background, so don't be too fussed about it. You just want to be able to see your line drawing as best as possible. And I'm going right over the Identipen with my gesso. So there's not really an outline. I'm going right over that Identipen.
I don't like anybody going in my.
Again, you're still going to be able to see some of that blue color coming through. That's quite all right. The gesso is just going to be a barrier. So when you go to put the fluid acrylics, or if you're using the Americana, it's just going to make it brighter than if you took it right to that blue color. So while you guys are doing that, and for those that aren't familiar with the fluid acrylics, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys a little bit more about those. They are primarily transparent. You have titanium white and Titan buff, which are your more opaque colors. And then the others are transparent, and you get some fantastic results using them when layering. One of my favorite things to do with them is to float color, because they float beautifully. They don't have the solids and binders in them like an Americana paint. So because they don't have those solids in them, when you layer one color over the other, you just get this beautiful, fantastic result. They're not just for painting on their own. All of your Americana projects, you can lay these on top of. You can, if you want, say, let's say you wanted a poinsettia redder, more red, you would put like the fluid acrylics red over, and it just pops because they're highly, intensely pigmented. And again, I could rave about them forever because they really are my favorite paint.
They are pretty awesome, and I think everyone should try them because I love them, and I love being able to layer them over my acrylic.
And Lana,
Thanks.
you've used them on fabric too, right?
Yes. Yeah, they make beautiful effects on fabric.
So they have a satin finish to them, and even with my favorite varnish that I put over the soft touch varnish, you still get such a beautiful finish and richness in color. And the other thing is, the price point might give you a little bit of sticker shock, but you use such a little amount. Like the tiniest dot goes such a long way, again, because they're highly pigmented. So once you get your fish base coated in with either the gesso or the white, you can go ahead and hit it again with the heat tool. If you go outside the lines, it's quite all right. Pat yourself on the back because you went outside the lines. All right. And a lot of times when I'm painting with the fluid acrylics, if I want something to be a little bit more opaque, you can put that transparent layer of gesso down. So if I did a color and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to not have these colors conflict or fight with each other. So a little transparent layer of gesso between them works and makes the next color you put on a little bit more opaque. The other thing is, if you do a background of colors and you're like, oh, that's just so in my face, it's so bright, do a wash of gesso over it. Let it sit for a minute and then wipe it back with a paper towel. And what it does, it tones down the color. And there is a difference, I think, not just because it's my favorite line of Deco Arts, but there is a difference with this gesso. I don't find it gritty or grainy. One thing I do help myself do when I'm done using it is I'll take a paper towel and I'll wipe around the inside rim, just so that if any's in the lid, or if I scraped, you know, my palette knife up against the side of the jar, that it doesn't dry out. You know, sometimes when you open a jar, it's a little crumbly. And I always try and open my jar to the side. So if there is any crumbly bits, it falls out instead of into my jar. So just a little tip on your gesso there. But again, you want to dry that.
Sandy, I found that the media gesso is a much smoother gesso than
Yes.
your typical gesso that you buy at the store. And always with that one from the store, it seemed like I would have to sand it because it would be so
Gritty.
textured,
Yeah.
and I didn't always want that.
Right. Again, I just do the touch test. Make sure it's dry. Ah. I took
Looking
Barb's dryer from her.
beautiful.
Do what?
I love the background. My gosh, it just
Isn't it
really
awesome?
pops.
Well, again, that's that gesso. And so I love using it on wood surfaces, on my journal pages, because, you know, if you want to try and get that kind of a background without using that technique of the gesso, paint you could use, but you're not going to get the dimension like you do from the gesso. But in these
It
darker
does look
spots,
3D.
yeah, in these darker spots, that's where the gesso did not hit. So just love it, love it, love it.
Beautiful.
So here's Barb's background. Because I'm going to use my heat tool on hers. Nice. She's got some really pretty texture in here.
Mm-hmm.
But someone mentioned very early on when we started about how these colors look very kind of watercolorish. While I don't use that as the all the time with them, you certainly can, because you can thin them out with water, but you still get that beautiful, vibrant color because they're highly pigmented. If you wanted it to, you know, be even softer, the tiniest touch and more water will just kind of make it move and float like you would traditional watercolor. All right, Barb, there you go. That's pretty good.
Good, Barb.
I want to say good job.
Thank you.
All right.
Sandy, someone wants to know, should we cover the outline?
I went over my black outline because I didn't want it to show. A couple places here where we're going to have the Payne's Gray in our finished piece. Let me show you. Like here, we're going to put some Payne's Gray and a little bit of titanium white. So those black lines really don't matter as much. Do you see how it's shaded down here as well with Payne's Gray? If you have a little bit of Identipen, that's quite all right. The only place I would say that you want to make sure that you cover or go over is where it's a little bit lighter up in here. So above his eye and back. But I have to tell you, let me hold it up. Can you see my pen line? I can still see my pen line right there. And I'm not too fussed about it because it's one of those things you really have to be on it and up close to it to notice that. It doesn't stick out like you can see a pen line, almost like if you're doing watercolor and you see pencil lines and stuff. So my suggestion is going to be anywhere up in here, go ahead and make sure that you have gesso that goes right over that Identipen. Look at that sparkle. Isn't that pretty? All right. Okay, so the next thing, hopefully all of you are done and dry. I see a couple heads shaking no, so I'm going to give you a minute to do that. If you are on your palette, you want to go ahead and get out a little bit of Payne's Gray. One of my favorite colors in just about any paint line. And you want to give it a nice shake. Again, you don't need much, maybe about the size of a pea right now. While you guys are doing that, finishing your base coat, getting out a little bit of Payne's Gray. Another great way to apply that gesso onto surfaces is with a brayer, because you get a really cool like puckering of the color. So a brayer works great. Is that a Masterson palette? It's not, Laura. It is, I'm going to grab it because it's right here so I can show you the label. It is this this peel off Freddie Weber tray palette. So I just added them to my website yesterday. I think I found 12 in my studio because I used to take them to seminars with me. I know several of my girls like Heather and Sandra Schmidt and them probably have them, but they come with a little thing inside that's like gripper feet that goes on the back to keep it in place. And what you can do with your acrylics or your oils is once they dry, you can just peel them right off. But again, I like to use press and seal because especially if I'm working and I need to, you know, go run an errand or something and then I can come back, my palette's still going to be fresh. So you can also make a wet palette out of this. You can do half, they're separated into 3 sections. So you could do like a wet palette on one side. Speaking of wet palettes, that's one thing I don't use with the fluid acrylics, because if you put that on paper towel or foam or whatever you use for your wet palettes, that paint is just going to go right into it and soak in and absorb. And so I typically don't use a wet palette for my fluid acrylics. But anyway, that's that palette.
Yes, I have one I got from you. I love it. And when you showed me the Glad Press and Seal on there, now I do it that way all the time. That's the only palette I use now.
But it really does save and not having, because palette paper's kind of gotten expensive. I don't know about y'all, but I mean, like this gray one that I used to get was around $4 something, and I think now it's closer to $9. So, okay. Hopefully everything is on and y'all's fish is dry. A little bit of Payne's Gray. 2 things. I'm going to show you how to use a flat brush. I use the Golden Gesso. That's totally fine. Shamala, that gesso is fine too. Should I sand it? Nope, no need to sand it. It's actually a pretty smooth gesso. It's just a little bit more of a price point than I want to pay. So, but no, it's perfectly fine. So the number 12 flat brush, or when I emailed you guys, I said if you have it handy, even though it wasn't in the supply list, if you have an angle brush. So I have a 3/8 angle or a number 12 flat. I'm going to show you both ways so that, you know, depending on which brush you have, you'll be able to do it. All right, so I'm going to get my number 12 flat wet, tap it off on a paper towel. I want to leave some of the moisture in there. I'm going to come over here to the Payne's Gray, and I'm going to pick up just on one corner a little bit of that Payne's Gray color and tap it on my palette. Let me zoom in. It's going to be out of focus for a minute. There we go. All right, so I'm just going to tap that on my palette, but you can see where it's darker and then where it's kind of migrating because the water is pulling that to the side. So I'm going to flip my brush over and just make sure that the other side of the brush is blended. What I typically don't do when I'm loading for a float of color or shading is that traditional double load movement, because your brush tends to get a little bit muddier. So if you just tap it in one place, turn it over, tap it in the same place, you'll be able to keep that color on there. But this is what we want to do now. We want to go ahead and shade on these lines. So I have the corner with the paint right on that line, and I'm just floating that color. Can you see that? Yes, no, maybe so. Since y'all can't answer. All righty, cool. Now, if you're using an angle brush and you've not used an angle brush, because I have to tell you guys, the first time I took a class and the person used an angle brush, I'm like, I don't know what that brush does. And if you don't know, Priscilla Hauser invented that brush. So with an angle brush, a little wet, tap it off on my paper towel. The toe is the longest point. I'm going to pick up a little bit of Payne's Gray on that. Tap it exactly the same way. And then all these places where you're going to have a little bit of shading. So on the fins, at the base of those fins, and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Let me hold this up so you can see even better. I'm not pulling it in one continuous pull. I'm pulling and I'm kind of tapping it as I move, and notice the ridges it's giving me. So it's going to mimic the look of those fins without having to do a whole bunch of work. And then just flip your brush over so you can go back the opposite direction. The other thing is this will help you not have to break out a mop brush and soften, because you don't have like a straight line. It's a jagged little float of color. Okay, so we have that on the fins. I'm just going to keep using the angle brush, but again, if you've got the flat brush, by all means, just on one corner. If it is not moving for you, you need more water in your brush. Okay, definitely a nice dark float right up underneath that eye. Too big, just touch it with your finger. In his mouth. Don't be afraid to use those fingers.
Yep.
And on your pattern, I don't know if you transferred it or not, but down the center on the finished fish picture, you'll see this line that's not real straight, but it's almost like it helps divide our two areas of all the yummy color we have on there. And I think I can see it on my camera, my screen. I don't know if you can, but when you went through the supply list, you're probably, why do we need 3 yellows? Why do we need that many blues? I can see like the cobalt teal hue and the ultramarine blue and a touch of white and a little bit of the pearl and the orange and the Dairy Lad. And Dairy Lad sounds better when you say it with a Southern accent. Dairy Lad yellow. Hansa yellow medium, Hansa yellow light, because all those colors are layered. It just gives this yummy, beautiful look instead of it being all these different, you know, like just one yellow or one blue. It looks realistic because they're layered. Okay, so I'm gonna take just a little bit of that, and my brush dried out a little bit. Just a little bit right down the center. Some of this is going to get covered up when we do our stenciling, but we'll just put it back in. Okay. I know that I want to have this little jagged, so just like I did before, I'm floating it and I'm kind of tapping it and moving it so I get that little jagged line that comes up. Give me a little bit of interest there. This little tiny itty bitty baby fin down here, he's going to get a little bit there. I'm going to bump up my float of color right up underneath the eye just a little bit more. What's going to be super cool about these is when we start to layer the color over them, you're going to see them still, and where we want to intensify and darken, we can definitely do that again, but because those colors are transparent, you're going to get a pretty more natural look and effect. do want to bring a little bit above at the base of this fin. Move that with my finger just a little bit. Okay. So again, we have it under the eye, right at the mouth. I just went right below that, where the top and bottom meet. These little gills, you know, they don't have to be just those 3 little lines, just kind of jagged and haphazard, nothing precise or exact. In fact, one of my favorite lines from Tracy Moreau is, "Perfection is to be avoided at all costs."
I'm loving this. I'm just loving this.
Me too. I can't wait to paint it.
I have everything sitting here, but I've been prepping for tomorrow's thing, so.
Yes, so y'all remember Tracy has a live tomorrow on Facebook, 12 o'clock Eastern, right?
Correct.
And then also on her YouTube. But we have some exciting news for you guys to share with you before you log off today about an event in October. And I'm just going to tease you there, and I'll tell you about it before we log off. But there's 4 of us artists doing an event in October, and I think you guys are going to be super pleased with who our 4th is. Since I just gave it away that there's 3 of us here. But okay, so the other thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to come right back here to the back of this fin and to the outside edge of each of these fins and lightly do the same thing. I'm just going to tap that color right along, but watch what I'm going to do for a second. I'm going to tap it, and I'm just going to kind of pull a line, tap and pull. So just kind of that messy little float, and then pull down some lines, again, to give that illusion that this is a very ruffly, scaly fin. Ridged, probably more than scaly. But just float that on and just zigzag that brush so that you get that really pretty cool effect. Sometimes it's those little things that can add so much to your piece, and you didn't have to do hardly anything to get it, you know, to achieve it. We just have to sometimes leave it alone because we want to fix it, or we want to make it, you know, look a little bit more nice, a little bit more neat. But sometimes that is exactly what it needs. So again, I'm going to do that on the outside of the top fin here. And then also this one. And I hear my neighbor, so I'm going to go ahead and apologize if you hear a lawnmower. Everyone is doing yard work. My husband finished his 10 minutes before I logged on because I told him he's going to be in a lot of trouble if he wasn't done on time. But he came in, he's like, "I did good, didn't I?" I'm like, "Yes, you did, darling." He's still on vacation. He's still on holiday. All right. So once you get those areas done, the other place I want you to shade Gonna give you guys a second to finish that. And we'll probably go back because once we get our colors on and we get things lighter and brighter, we want to make sure that our dark colors and our shading matches our brightness and our highlights. So again, once we get our fish painted, start splattering and doing some things, we might intensify this. You can't go wrong with it being a little bit strong. So don't be a wimpy floater, as I like to say. You want to make this nice and rich because it's going to make that fish pop out of the water or separated from the background. And that's this area right in here. So notice again how it's just kind of a messy float. And I even come down a little bit further so it doesn't just all go along his belly. You've got color there, but then I even bring it down here a little bit so that, you know, it separates him from the background. So around his, just that part of his mouth, down here on this side of the fin. But look at the camera for me for a minute. Notice how I didn't do it right here. It's only underneath. If I do it around the fin, it's going to look outlined. Okay. But then I do want to come right back up to this fin right there. And again, notice there's no shading here because then again, it's just going to look outlined. And then right up here, right under that fin. So put that there without it falling over. Again, have some moisture in your brush so that it's moving for you. You're just going to pull that brush at an angle. Again, if it's not moving, a little more water in your brush. Right up underneath that fish. Right up under the fish there and on that side. So on the left side of this fin, just slightly around, kind of tap it with your finger instead of just leaving like a finish line. So if you can see right here at the end, if you can see like a line from your angle brush, kind of just tap that out with your finger. There, I'm being a little bit of a wimpy floater. I want to see this really nice, rich color. Because when we start bringing bubbles and stuff into the game, we can put things over that to take away, especially if you have a harsh line there. We can fix all that up. Always a way to fix it. And sometimes that's as good as the lesson. Because if you don't know how to fix it, then a lot of times those are the projects that go up against the wall or that aggravate you. And so it's those little tricks on how to fix something, I think, are just as valuable. And then you just want to rinse your brush out. Tracy Moreau, you're so silly, girlfriend.
Why? What did I do?
Your palette thing just came through.
Oh. I've been looking for one of those silly things.
Okay, so one less palette in the inventory. All right, so I could sit there and I could float color all day, I have to tell you guys. And if floating is not your thing, like you just do not like doing it or you've not gotten a handle on it, if you get nothing, then the Payne's Gray or raw umber in this line to shade and float color with, I highly recommend that you get that. It just moves beautifully. And the other thing, because it's transparent, what it does do, I'll stop moving my hand, there's a shadow. The other thing it does do, I feel like it gives you a truer shadow because it's transparent. So instead of it being a harsh color or a more opaque color, you can see through it, which on a shadow, you can see through to a lot of times to the surface, right? Like if a leaf's hitting it, you can still see the surface through that shadow. And so I think that's what the fluid acrylics do so very well. I'm noticing the top of my line here. So I'm gonna pick up a little more gesso, and I'm just gonna bring that up and over where I didn't get my Identipen line. Okay, and then rinse your brush out. And you want to go ahead and get your shedded stencil. So even if you're finishing up with your shading, if you are finished with that, go ahead and get your shedded stencil. It's actually a snakeskin stencil. I absolutely love it for just about everything, that just to add a little texture to something. Looks beautiful, I thought, on this fish. I started to use, yes, Laura, you may. So that's 2 out of inventory, sorry. So I love the scaly look that it gave this fish by moving it around different ways. I know Janet Gropp held up one that's a little bit larger in size. And it's still kind of it's like just, yeah, it's just a larger print of like a snake skin or that look. So you just want to move it around to get a really pretty scaly looking base to your fish. But I had started, and I put it in the instructions too, where I had started to do, you can see it right here. It's actually a mermaid stencil that Tracy Moreau and I have a stencil line called M Square, which is Moreau McTier. And I started to use that, and I thought, okay, that's going to be 5 stencils. I mean, this fish just is a little overdone. So I actually pulled that one out because it was a little too big, and I just didn't feel like it added anything. So in the finished piece, you see very little of that. And that shedded stencil, I just thought was like what gave it the fish look. So if you weren't able to get your hands on that and you don't have a stencil to use right now, let me show you what I would do. I would take your angle brush with a little bit of that Payne's Gray on the toe. So if you didn't get one of those stencils, look what I'm going to do real quick, because I'm going to wipe it off when I'm done, because I have the stencil. The other thing is, when I was on vacation, the stencils arrived. So if you want a shedded stencil, it's now on my website, but I just didn't know when I was going to be able to get them in. So basically, these shapes are very loose and rough circles and ovals. Okay, so see those? Very loose, kind of rough circles and ovals, more so than a polka dot. We're going to use the polka dots, but I don't want something that exact for his scales. But you could take an angle brush and you could kind of shimmy around on the toe of that brush to get different size little designs like that with the toe of your angle brush or the corner of a flat brush. All right. But since I have this one, you need a stencil brush and a dry paper towel. And if you don't have enough Payne's Gray on your palette, go ahead and put out a little bit more Payne's Gray. And on this stencil, you'll notice there are larger areas and there's smaller areas. I stayed away from the edge because I didn't want to have a straight line. And I wanted to move it around so that maybe some of these larger bits were in the center of my fish. But if they got closer to the top or to the bottom, I wanted it to be those smaller areas. So this isn't one of those things you lay it down and you stencil it from left to right and all around. You know, you're going to have to move it around so that you can have some of the bigger in the center of your fish and the smaller areas, top and bottom. All right. And I just went all the way from kind of his eye area all the way back to this little first zigzag on his back fin there. So I'm using the 1/2" Dynasty. I like this brush. I wish I had grabbed it because I love this one too. This is, and probably even perfect for this because of those tiny little areas, but Tracy Moreau has a stencil brush line, and these little bits come out and they get into those finer little areas. So with my 1/2" stencil, I'm gonna load it up with Payne's Gray, whirl it around on my palette. Now remember over here, when I loaded my brush, which I never do that. I always try and stay in one place, and look what I did for you guys today. I'm all over the place. But I'm not gonna go over here because there might be water on my palette. I'm gonna come over with my dry stencil brush, load it up with Payne's Gray, take my dry paper towel, and I wanna wipe off almost all of it. Now, a lot of times I'll come back here to my paper towel, depending on how much paint is there. Okay. And then I'm just gonna start right up here because I have smaller little bits up here. And with my handle of my brush kind of straight up and down with a soft circular motion, I'm gonna go counterclockwise. Try and stay within the fish. Like up here, you can go back and forth a little so that you're within the fish line pattern, but counterclockwise and then clockwise. Counterclockwise, clockwise. Now I don't want these big ones back here, so I'm gonna stop and let me move that for you. La la, look how pretty. Okay, then
Awesome.
I'm gonna move.
It really does
those.
look like fish scale.
Doesn't it? It's perfect stencil for it. And then some bigger ones in the center. Now I have those little ones back here. So, and I don't care, when you move it, you don't have to line it up. You want to try not to overlap it too much, but see where I moved it? A couple of those overlapped, quite all right. You've got color, we've got glitter, we've got pearlescent color. It's going to just be a part of the look of the scales and not have to be precise and exact. Okay, so each time I'm loading up my brush, I'm wiping it off on a paper towel so that I don't have too much paint. It's easier to build the layers of paint than it is to take off all the paint that seeps underneath your stencil. And again, just move it so that you have smaller circles down here. Very lightly around his face. Just like that.
That is awesome.
Easy peasy. I'll give you guys some time to get that on there. Okay, pull that down a little for you. So see, you know, I didn't get as strong closer to the face. It's not as strong. Doesn't go all the way to his mouth. We wouldn't see that much detail. It would really kind of taper off, but you do have that really nice dark color in the center here, along the edges. Some's a little darker than others, and I'm not too fussed about that at all. while y'all are finishing that, let me tell you the next couple of steps as we're loading and layering this color. At any time you don't want your fluid acrylics to mix too much, because sometimes like a blue and an orange will not make a really pretty color when mixed together. Break out your heat tool, dry your area. And then when you layer an orange over a blue, it's going to be better than if they mix. Hopefully that makes sense. And these colors, I'm going to lay them on rather quickly. So I don't want you to stress about it. I just want you to kind of think like you're a watercolor artist and you're laying on this wet color and putting it in and rinsing your brush, or even just wiping off your brush and going on to the next thing, because the quicker we do it, the prettier it's going to all come together than laying on yellow and leaving it. You know, we're going to put all three of those yellows on, because when it dries, you're going to see all three of those different yellow colors. And then when it's dry, we're going to put some quinacridone gold on it. And you're just going to get a really pretty look to that orange and golden hues of that quinacridone gold. Say that fast 10 times, quinacridone. But you'll get a really pretty look to those yellows too at the base of his belly with that quinacridone gold over the dry yellow. So, and I think that really kind of shows you, I tried to make the pictures as big as possible in your packet. But I think that really kind of shows you, like in this picture, see where that orange is really pretty intense, but it's very wet. And then as I'm laying this yellow on, notice how it's different from that top picture to the bottom picture, because the water kind of moved it out. But most of that is that quinacridone gold over that orange that helps kind of just give it a totally different look. And it's a fish at the end of the day, and someone's not going to look at it and go, your orange on that fish is in the wrong place, you know, or you have too many yellows on that fish, right? And if they do, then just tell them to take my class.
Okay. Sandy, someone said, when I stenciled, I made it a little dark on top of my fish. Is there a way to tone it down?
Great question. So yes, you can take, if it's too dark, you might want to show it on the camera too, and I'll scroll over to look. Let me find you. Yeah. Why don't you guys hold up your, when you're done, you can hold them up. I'm trying to find, smell it there. Okay. Oh, nice. Oh yeah. See, Janet, I love that. How you manipulated that. Yes, guys, that looks really good. Awesome. Awesome. They're looking good. So, you know, on a couple, like what you're talking about, Shamala, on the center, if you have an area you feel like it is, I just told Barb to turn hers around, where it's too dark, the fix is going to be taking a wet brush, a little bit of gesso, a little bit, and brushing over it. So let me look up here, see where it's the darkest on my, look at the screen for me if you would, because I don't want to cover it up too many times, but right in here where it's dark, if you take that gesso and brush over it, do you see how that just takes it down a couple notches? Hopefully that showed up on camera for you. Mm-hmm. And if you feel like you get too much gesso, take a paper towel and wipe it, or just lay your hand on it and it'll lift some of it up. But always a way to tone it down. Anytime I'm painting with immediate paints, my go-to is gesso. Building those.
I use it by the gallon.
Yeah. We've asked Stan, the owner of DecoArt, to please put it in a gallon size. So you're welcome, Shamala. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. But it just adds that softness. And again, I love to use it in my backgrounds and in my journal pages because it's an added layer, pushes things back and allows the color you put on top to shine. All right. So when you're done with your stencil, let me show you what I do, because I think sometimes this is super important too, is to see how to clean your stencil. So There are a couple of things you can use: the brush and stencil cleaner, soap and water. My go-to used to be hand sanitizer, which, hello, I'm not using, but awesome from the Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
And I just give it a nice little spritz. And then my stencil brush, and I'm working on this is a silicone mat that I got from Amazon. Media gesso versus chalky gesso. Kathy, yes. Chalky gesso is going to be a little bit more opaque, and they're two different products. So the media gesso is what I would use. So then I take my stencil brush and I clean my stencil at the same time, and we're not going to use our stencil brush for a while, so you can go ahead and, so I do that, and then I throw it into my water. Usually I have a little water thing here, or I go throw it in the sink, and then my husband comes home, he's like, okay, it's time to make dinner. Can we move your stencils out of the sink? But what it does is it cleans your brush and it cleans your stencil at the same time. If they're real intricate, you don't want to use like a baby wipe or something, because some of those little pieces you can bring up. But on a stencil like this, I'll just show you how easy it is to clean. That's pretty cool, huh?
Slick,
I did
slick,
on my mat.
Cool.
All right, and then you just want to set that stencil aside and then dry off your stencil brush. So we're not going to use it for a while, but we do want to, and since I use cleaner, I'm actually going to rinse mine and dry it off. And a lot of times if I'm teaching a class at a convention or something, I will use hand sanitizer to clean my stencil brush in between colors, because once the hand sanitizer evaporates, your stencil brush is pretty much ready to go. Whereas on these, when you use water, it tends to hold on to the water a little bit more. So again, hand sanitizer works great in between colors. And then we'll get right back into that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions while we're finishing that and you're washing your stencil brush? And tell me in the comments if you're having fun. Okay. So Tracy said, I am, but I'm not painting. I had a lady message me yesterday and she said, you know, I was a little overwhelmed like at Summerfest, because things we were on for 8 hours each day, even longer if you came into the room earlier. But sometimes it's nice, especially since these are recorded, just to kind of sit back and watch. And if you get behind, you know, to just sit and watch, and you can go back and watch the recording, which is nice. But when I'm in a class, I like to keep up and try to remember everything they say, which never happens. So have to leave now. We'll watch and finish. Thank you, Diane. Yes, I knew you did. So we'll be on the recording. And if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to message me. Awesome, Deb. Barb, yours went private. She just said she's having fun and she's even keeping up so far. All right, guys, on your palette, we're going to get out a little bit of the cad orange hue or bright orange or whatever orange you grabbed. And I'm going to lay that about a pea size, which probably is too big. These colors usually don't separate at all because they're not opaque, they're transparent. So the only ones that you definitely want to make sure you shake up are like if you have a Titan Buff, which I don't think I used, and then a titanium white. But if the like if it separates, even with your Americana color, if you go to put that on your palette and all the clear stuff comes out without the pigment, do not wipe that up. Use it as a floating medium. Use it as a medium to help you carry that paint or float that paint on, because it dries completely clear. Thank you so much, Janice, for joining. I'm so glad you're here. And continued prayers for your husband and you. All right, I have out Cad Orange Hue, Dairy Lied Yellow. I love saying that. It's a really nice, ooh, like school bus in your face yellow. Hansa Yellow Medium. If you don't have all three yellows, don't worry. It's, as long as you've got two. Hansa Yellow Light. And I'm putting out way too much. I mean, really, like I could do an eighth of everything I'm putting out, being a little heavy-handed. Depending on where you live, like Dixie in Arizona, where it's extremely hot, they probably will dry out a little bit faster. So that's where I would, you know, not put as much on my palette. You can always get more out. See, look on that press and seal. I'm going to take a baby wipe and move where I migrated with my color there. I'm going to take a little bit of ultramarine blue. Love this blue color. So vibrant. And then my all-time favorite color in this line is the cobalt teal hue.
That's my favorite one too.
Love.
I love that color.
Well, I think probably pretty much everyone here knows that Tracy Moreau and I do a lot of work with DecoArt. And so we just got business cards as creative consultants with DecoArt. And on the back of the business card, they asked us, what's your favorite Americana color? Because they put that on the back of your business card with the number. So like DA, whatever, I don't know the number for Bahama Blue is my all-time favorite Americana color. And so I wrote and said, oh, I got my cards, look, and I sent pictures and Tracy goes, well, that's my color. So on the back of both our cards, we have Bahama Blue. Okay, I'm gonna get out a little bit of white, little titanium white. Now let me tell you about this, guys. So I'm not gonna put this out just yet. I just wanna show it to you. So when you mix any of your fluid acrylics with this white pearls color, you get a pearlescent color. Okay, you can even use the pearl medium. What I found with this one, this Snow White one, is I found that it didn't make the color cloudy, whereas sometimes with the pearlizing medium, I felt like some of the colors were just a touch on the cloudy side. Whereas this, you brush it out and you just get that opalescent, beautiful pearlized color. So when we start layering some colors, we are going to add a little bit of this into our color, okay? And then we're also going to stencil with it. So I said I wasn't going to, but I'm going to put a pea size out on my palette.
Sandy, someone said their Cad Yellow is very lumpy.
Oh, the Cad Yellow is, or the Cad Orange? The Cad Orange, Chris,
Well,
you know,
I guess you just said my Cad is very lumpy.
Yeah, so the only Cad we have is the orange. So I would, if you can get some out of it, we're only going to use a little, and maybe add some water to it so that you can get some of that color. If not, then just grab one of your Americana oranges. If you just got that Cad Orange, you can email me and I'll help hook you up. But you, DecoArt is very good about making sure that that they will make it right. So the other thing is they'll take like your batch number that's on the side. That way they know if there was an issue with the batch that was made on that day. All those numbers tell them a story, which is kind of foreign to me, but it does. It's old. See if you can mix a little bit of water. If it's too lumpy, I would just go ahead and grab one of your Americana orange colors, or if you have Pyrrole orange or vermilion in the same line, you can use one of those orange colors. Okay, yeah, so grab one of those. That'll work fine. All right, so what we have is the Cad Orange Hue, Diary Light Yellow, Hansa Yellow Medium, Hansa Yellow Light, Ultramarine Blue, Cobalt, White, and I went ahead and put out a little bit of the pearls. Okay, so I'm gonna have a paper towel handy, and I'm gonna get my number 12 flat. I wanna get it wet. Now I don't wanna use these like total watercolor. I do wanna see some of that pigment. So I'm gonna have some moisture in my brush, but it's not gonna be dripping wet. All right, and a great way to be able to tell how much water you have in your brush is by running it between your middle finger and your index finger, or your middle finger and your index finger. If it drips down your fingers, you have too much water. All right, so that just, I don't know, that's my gauge. That tells me how much water I have in my brush. I can feel there's moisture in there without it drippy. All right, so I'm gonna load up the Diary Light Yellow, and I'm just going to brush it onto my fish. I feel like I took too much water out as I'm sitting there rubbing it between my fingers, so I'm gonna pick up a little bit more. Notice how I don't have anything kind of straight on the edge. If you do, you just use your finger and kind of soften that out. So that's Diary Light Yellow.
Diary Light.
That's my favorite yellow.
So pretty. Just kind of slip-slop it on there. Nothing exact, nothing precise. Flip-flop it on the back of your brush, flat of your brush, move it around.
Now, if someone's using Americana paints, will they have to use a little bit more water to get their paint more transparent?
Yeah, thank you. Just like I said in the beginning, if you're using Americana or any other acrylic paint, you do want to make sure that you are using a little bit more water in your brush so that you have these transparent, almost like you're painting a wash. Okay, so I'm just going to rinse my brush, tap it off on my paper towel, a little bit of the Hansa Yellow Medium, kind of lay that in, and I'm pretty much staying below this center line. If I go high, like I did there, I'm just going to take my finger and rub it out. But I can see a definite difference even just between those tones, those colors. The Diary Light Yellow has more of that rich, dark, golden yellow. So all I did was I put some Hansa Yellow Medium right on top, not everywhere. I'm not painting it on, I'm slip-slapping it. Rinse out my brush, tap it off, Hansa Yellow Light. Same thing. Use your fingers to take away any kind of straight line. So Diary Light Yellow, Hansa Yellow Medium, Hansa Yellow Light, slip-slap it on there. I even see a couple of pockets where I rubbed with my finger and it's just a touch white. That's quite all right.
Where did you put your Hansa Yellow Light?
Just here and there on the colors that you put on before.
Okay.
And then rinse my brush, tap it off, some Cad Orange right on his mouth here back. Okay, so see how I put that orange on? And then I'm just gonna move it around, blend it right into that yellow, either with your brush or with your finger. I think your finger works better, to be honest with you.
Yep.
You just end up with that. Oh, love that. You just end up with that. See how it just goes right into the yellows? There's no line, there's no division. Even over here, it's just still kind of sketchy because we're going to put some blue in there. And then when I use my finger, I kind of brought it closer toward the middle. Oranger here, but because I blended it right into that yellow, it brought it right over to the belly of his body. Bishop body. Okay. Easy peasy, right? I mean, how easy was that? Awesome.
Gorgeous.
Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to let that dry. I'm going to rinse my brush out. Now I have to tell you, I probably have enough. This is your visual. I probably have enough color there for everybody in this class of the ultramarine blue. Okay. Because that's how little we're going to use. So I'm going to pick up a touch on my wet brush, and I want to come over here and I'm going to start laying it in place and moving it around.
Oh, that's looking so good.
See how, and don't, so this is the thing, I'm not brushing it on. If I were brushing it on, I'd end up with very streaky, brush marked looks to my stroke. You know, like it just would not look right. Whereas this kind of scumbling it around, moving it around, tapping it around is going to give you some dark here, some light there. And then when you get right to that yellow, just kind of tap it in place right over that yellow where they meet, because you're layering it on top. The yellow's already dry and it's just going to look super, super pretty. So a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. If
Are
you
you
feel,
just doing like are you doing like a here and there kind of thing? You're just moving around?
I am. I'm just kind of doing a here and there, but I want to do something on purpose so I can show you. So if you feel like it's too dark, see how I just made it really dark there? Take a paper towel, lay it down and lift it, or mush it around with your finger. My fingers have yellow on them, so guess what I just did? I just made a little green there. That's okay. Baby Wipe's going to take it away. Okay. So that's the hazard of using your fingers sometimes, is you'll contaminate. But so just kind of moving this around. This is the ultramarine blue. So right here where they meet, don't just go right over like a line. Come down right to that line and up. Down over that line and up. Again, I love the look. Somewhere it's lighter, some places it's darker, some places like in here, which, oh, I love. So look right there where it kind of made little speckles. I don't know how it did it, but I like it. And that's my #1 rule. And I can't believe I haven't told you that yet. But my #1 rule in painting is if you like it, leave it. Even if it doesn't look like mine. And if you don't like it, we'll figure out a way to fix it. Okay. But when things like that happen, don't brush it out. Don't feel like, oh, I got to fix that. There's tiny little dots there. Leave it. It's going to look super pretty. All right. Loving it. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to do, again, with a little bit of this paint on my brush, and I think you can definitely see it, like on this picture here, if you're following along on page 6, see on his back fin, his tail fin, how I put some of that color. He has color on that fin and the top one with a little bit of ultramarine blue, but his bottom fin is orange. So we don't want to put any blue down there, but with my brush in that ultramarine blue, I am going to tap just like this, not covering it, not brushing it on. I'm just tapping it on. So I'm tapping it kind of on the chisel and pull, right over those lines.
Mentioned that there seems like it is blending with the gesso.
Then your gesso might not be dry enough. So hopefully, Diane, your gesso was dry. Just kind of give it a touch with the paper towel, lift it, and then hit it with your heat tool or a blow dryer. Just make sure that your gesso is dry, and then you can add more. Once we get all of his color on, we'll come back and we'll intensify some colors. So even if you feel like right now it's a little more muted, when you come back and you add another layer on top of a dry layer, you're going to get an even more intense look with that color. Okay, and the other thing, sometimes his eye's in the way, or, you know, I just went over his eye. Just touched it with my finger. Because we're going to have blue on his eye anyway. So see how I just brushed right over his eye and then just lightly touched it with my finger. His top fin, his tail fin, all have a little bit of that ultramarine blue. And then we're going to let that sit for just a minute. I'm going to rinse out my brush. Tap it on my paper towel. My favorite color, cobalt teal hue. And here and there, but not everywhere, you want to tap in some of that cobalt color. Now look at the difference. Can you see like where I put in the cobalt teal hue? And then just kind of skip around, add some over here. And doing it this way, you can always go back and add more. It's harder to take away, you know, a whole big area or a line, a harsh line, because, you know, we're brushing it on. We're just kind of scumbling it around. Come right down over that yellow.
Oh, those colors look so good together.
Isn't that pretty? And they're getting even a little bit of that gray tone that we got from the blue, from the background. You know, we just put that soft layer of gesso over it. So you're getting some of that coming through as well. Okay. So when you're done adding some of that cobalt teal hue, here, there, but not everywhere, you can hit it with the heat tool or blow dryer. I do have a little bit of that cobalt teal hue on both of the fins, just like I put the ultramarine blue. So again, just kind of tap and pull on those fins. And then dry it off. What's going to happen too when you dry it, like I'm watching my blue dry and I see it's, you know, it's a little on the light side up here for me. So my next layers, when I put that pearlescent white with those colors, it's going to look so pretty. covered in paint.
Well, then you're doing your job well.
Yeah. And again, I like to just kind of give it that touch. Another thing after using a heat tool is you don't want to go straight to your piece with paint, because wherever it's hot, it's going to grab that paint off your brush and it's going to stay there. All right, so after I use a heat tool, not so much a cool setting on a blow dryer, but you want to just kind of give it that touch and see if it's too hot to keep painting. All righty. So hopefully everyone has that part on. And it doesn't look like there's anything there, but I do have a little bit of that Snow White Pearls color here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the ultramarine blue, and it doesn't matter what brush you're using. If you have a 12 flat, your angle, doesn't matter. A little bit of water in it, and then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pick up a little bit of that Pearls color, kind of tap that in place. And then right up here, kind of tap that color in. So it's not showing up on camera. I mean, now I just have this pearlescent, beautiful pearlescent color that just added a shimmer and a shine. See if I can get the light to hit it just right. Probably not till it's dry. Excuse me. And again, I don't want to put it everywhere. Then it kind of loses its oomph, you know, it's. So that's the ultramarine blue. I'm so sorry, I have something stuck in my throat. A little bit of the pearls. I'm going to tap some onto the top fin. And the tail fin, just like I added that color. On my original too, I can really see it right in here. Right where that blue and that orange meet on his mouth is a little bit of that pearlescent color. And then see how I'm just tapping it right over that orange and yellow. And it just beautifully transitions from one color to the next. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the cobalt teal hue. And a little bit of the pearlescent color. Just a little. Okay. You're seeing that difference? Hopefully.
It's a shame the pearl and the glitter stuff doesn't show up better on camera, because, you know, when you're painting with it, you can see how vibrant and beautiful it is.
I agree. And again, don't forget a little bit on the, get too much like I did there, just tap it out with your finger. Diane Williams, let me know in the comments if that's still mixing with your gesso or blending with your gesso too much, or if that trick worked, drying it off a little. So I can make sure you got it. And let me go ahead and tell you guys too that all this is just the prep and prime for our holographic illusions to go over it, because that right there makes that fish. The holographic illusions glitter, which Tracy and I helped name, it it has a holographic glitter in it. So depending on how the light hits it, you get this really pretty shimmer and iridescence. It's not really, really in your face strong glitter. It's not a chunky glitter. And I just think it adds everything to this project. So if you weren't able to get it, I know that I have some on the way. And Craft Twinkles, Glamour Dust, any kind of a fine glitter that you can put over it that's not going to give you an opaque coverage is going to help all those colors underneath give your fish the exact shine that it needs. I dried and redid some stencil. Awesome, Diane. That's great to hear. Great to hear. Okay, so for those of you that are using the fluid acrylics, see how little you use? Very little. Very, very little. I put some blue down here that I'm not liking, so I'm going to add a little bit more orange right there, just so it transitions better. Just play with it. Just play and have fun. It doesn't have to be precise and exact. All right, so hopefully you're done with the blue. Shake your head, let me know. On your palette, you need some quinacridone gold. If you don't have quinacridone gold and you have like a traditional burnt sienna, you can use that with a touch. I would put like a touch of probably some Hansa Yellow Light with it, just to, or Yellow Light if you just have Yellow Light Americana, just to kind of give it more of a golden tone, maybe even some Diarylite Yellow if you have that. But it's a unique color. So it's hard to, the substitutions are just that, they're suggestions. But they're not a one on like, this is exactly like this, because again, this is such a different paint. So quinacridone gold, it actually looks like burnt sienna. So, but, oh, so pretty. It just pulls out to a beautiful golden color. All right, so along the bottom of my fish, if you'll notice from your on your finished picture, if you have that, I tried to give you a couple of step outs, but then also a big finished picture of your fish. Along the bottom, we have more of that orange and we have some quinacridone gold. So now I'm going to come here with my brush. Doesn't matter if you're using the 12 or an angle brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit more on my damp brush of this cad orange hue, and over my yellow, I'm going to tap a little bit more at the base of his belly here. Make sure you got some moisture in that brush. Don't want it too strong. And I'm going to go all the way back and let it taper off towards his little tail end right here. But again, very haphazard, very uneven. Use your finger to tap that out so that you don't end up with a strong line where the paint ends and meets the other. Oh, I just love that.
Mm.
Okay. I'm also going to take some of that cad orange and I'm going to pull it from the edge here on this bottom fin back, using the chisel edge just to get some nice little separated streaks. touch on that guy. Okay. So the thing is, if you want it to be a little bit more intense, you can always add a little bit more orange, but let me show you what we're gonna do with the quinacridone gold, because same thing with the damp brush, especially right in here, close to the belly, I'm gonna tap that over that orange. Ooh, a little bit too much water in my brush. And it's going to intensify that orange color. So I don't want to go all the way up in here too much. I want to see that yellow. And that right there is really aggravating me because I came too far up with my yellow, but I'm going to show you how to fix it if you've done that. But I'm going to put some of that quinacridone gold, just kind of tap it in at the base of his belly. And you'll really be able to see that when it dries. You'll be able to see that gold, the diary-lyed yellow and those other yellows, you know, kind of shine through these colors that you're putting on top. So if you're using Americana, make sure you're watering it down a little. And then you also want to put some on this fin. So exactly the way I added it before. Just going to tap it in. It doesn't have to be on every single orange line. Kind of tap on the chisel edge to get that in there. Because when we come back and shade right there, it's going to lift that body away from the fin. So let you catch up with that, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to fix this yellow up here. Go to gallery view. See lots of heads down painting.
It's looking good. Like he could just jump right off of that canvas there.
Well, like I said, when I painted him, I, was quite surprised with the response, especially from my friend and the very talented Peggy Harris. And she messaged me, she said, you need to do a series of fish. And I thought, I don't know, maybe it's just a one and done. But now I feel a little pressure to do a series. But I do think it'd be cute to have maybe 2 others that go with him.
Yeah, it would make a nice, like, triptych or something.
Trio. Mm-hmm.
Here I am talking away and I'm muted.
What were you saying? More fish. Oh, thanks, Sue.
No, I was saying that everything that you're showing here really shows that transparent, the technique of layering transparent color one over top of the other, just how effective it can be, even when you're working with light colors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll lift it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. I totally agree. And so like what I just did, guys, I lifted mine up to look at it. Don't hesitate to look it up, hold it back and see, because these do have a little bit of a satin sheen to them. So you, because you're using water and because the finish in them, you might, it just might be too much of a glare. So don't hesitate to hold it up and look at it. And you can kind of adjust your colors if you need to, you know, a little bit more of the quinacridone gold if it's not as golden rich at the bottom, like I'm doing right now. Okay, so notice on mine I have blue and I have yellow and I have the orange, and it's very separated. So this area, I'm going to show you in a minute how I'm going to fix that because I feel like I came up too high. But in here, to tone down, if you're feeling like, oh, it's just a little on the yellow side, very little bit of that quinacridone gold and just lightly brush it over. It's going to tone down that yellow for you. You don't want to tone it down too much. I mean, you do want some of that gold and yellow in there. But that quinacridone gold is such a pretty color that if you brush a little bit of that over, when the yellow shines through it, you're just going to have a really pretty look. Yeah, I like that much better. It's not in your, it's not as separated.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you're done, I'm gonna give you a couple more minutes and then I want you guys to hold it up. Are you fanning yours, Peg? Looks like you're fanning it by the Golden Gate Bridge. Oh, Sandra Schmidt, that looks awesome. Oh, Heather. Oh, Chris. Guys, this looks so good. Stephanie, Dixie, Marianne. Wow, Peg, Cynthia Hughes.
Look awesome.
Oh my gosh, guys, Sue, those look good. Virginia.
Ooh, Diane, I love the tone you got in yours.
Janet, I have to go forward because Kathy Murphy. Oh yeah, and so pretty. Look at that golden yellow. Teresa, I know you're hanging this in your Florida house, huh? So pretty, yeah. Oh, Wendy, wow, it just shines, guys. Colette, how pretty.
Oh, Barbara's
Okay.
is gorgeous.
Yeah. Awesome, 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 guys. All right. So let me show you right here, because if you've done what I did, which is bring this yellow up just a little, I just feel like it's a little too high. I like how my finished one, I can still see the yellow underneath it, but it doesn't, it's not just blue and yellow. So what I'm gonna do with that ultramarine blue, I'm gonna take a little bit of water on my brush, tap it off, a little bit of ultramarine blue, and I can do this now because my yellow's dry. If I do it when the yellow is wet, it's gonna make green, okay? But if I layer the blue over the dry yellow, the yellow's gonna shine through and it's not gonna give me a green color. And then a little bit of the cobalt teal hue. I just wanna kind of give that a little bit better transition where that blue and yellow meet. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the pearl with that too. Let that transition a little better. So hopefully you can see that difference. I can here looking at it, but hopefully on camera you can as well. And sometimes this moving the brush around and it not being an exact stroke or a precise this way, or you have to do it like that. Sometimes it's a lot harder, especially a little bit harder to teach, because unless you're seeing my brush up close and how I'm moving it or how I'm seeing your brush move, you know, it's just one of those things that if you're just flopping it around and slip slapping it around, that's exactly what you want. Judy, that's quite all right. So nice that your grandkids can be with you. Judy owns a vineyard, y'all, in California.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. All righty. So, y'all ready to move on? Is the holographic illusions going to cover a lot of my ugly? Chris Woods, there's not ugly. I saw your piece when you held it up, but let me tell you, it really does tone, and it tones things down, but it brings everything together. It just makes it all make sense. You know, like when you paint a flower and then you put the center of the flower in and a little bit of detail, all of a sudden, you know, it's a poppy, whereas before it just looked like a blob of paint. The glitter is just going to soften and give that background and what we're doing right now so much more oomph. Oomph is good. All righty. So let's get out this stencil. This is the, not that you can see it, this is the smaller of the polka dots. And I did two things with this. And as I'm looking at my instructions, I think I may not have put one of them. But okay. So do you see along the bottom where the yellow and the orange is, where there's some tiny little dots? Do you see those? Hopefully. Y'all can just shake your head if you do.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a little touch of Payne's Gray that I did on top of the orange. So I am going to take my stencil brush, and since we washed it, you just want to make sure that it's not really, really wet. If you need a little more Payne's Gray, you can get some Payne's Gray. I have to tell you, just now thinking about it, some quinacridone gold might even look pretty doing this, but I used Payne's Gray, so I'm going to show you what I did. The smallest little polka dot. So I'm just going to try and line it up so that it goes in between some of those little scales. It can be on them. It can go, I just don't want it to be lined up where you can't see them. And I'm not doing many of them. Little Payne's Gray, swirl it around on your palette. Swirl it off on your paper towel. You might even think I have no more paint on my brush, and that's exactly what you want. Circular motion, just along here on the bottom. Yeah, it just needed to, when I did it the first time, it just felt like it was very divided, and I felt like these little tiny polka dots was exactly what it needed to bring it, the design a little bit better together. And that's just a little bit of Payne's Gray. And I need to stop.
Get carried away.
I know, keep going and going and going. And again, you want to just, a lot of times you can just take it here, but going from a dark color to a light color on your stencil brush, a little hand sanitizer, a little bit of water just on the tips to try and get more of that Payne's Gray out, and then put it to the side. Now the fix is, if you got it too dark, a little bit of water in your brush. You can take a little orange, a little bit of quinacridone gold over it, tap it with your finger. And because we stenciled it on with very little paint, it's probably already dry. You could probably already go ahead and do that. Again, that's just going to help tone that down. What, Barb? A little bit of orange or a little bit of quinacridone gold. Okay.
We may have two bottles, can't find either one.
Pardon? Okay. So let's move away from all that for right now. Let that kind of set up. You need a liner brush, liner brush of your choice. And on your palette, you need a little bit of carbon blackout, a little bit of carbon black on your palette. And so this is the other thing. I jump around a lot in my paintings. So even though like the next step in my pattern packet isn't to go to the eye, if I want to let things dry, if, I kind of want to see how those colors soften and dry and look after they're done, then I'll move somewhere else in my painting. It also is a good trick and thing to do when you start to get frustrated or aggravated in something, because the longer you stay on it, the more aggravated you're going to get. And the bigger it gets and the worse it gets sometimes. So it's best just to kind of move on to another area, come back to it. So not that this is aggravating me, I just need it to dry. So we're going to move on to his eye. And let me show you how pretty his eye is. Hopefully you can see it on your picture. But it just wet on wet, we're going to put some white around his eye first, this little round part. And then we'll bring in some of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of cobalt. The inside of his eye is black. Okay, that whole circle inside is black. But then I let it dry and I came back with a little orange and white and just kind of highlighted his eye and then tapped it with a couple little dots of white. But I think it makes it look dimensional and kind of glassy like an eye looks, because that orange that's on the black, but we have to let it dry in order for that to stay. All right. So we're going to load up our liner brush with black. Okay. And I'm just going to paint in that circle. And I'll zoom in so that you guys can see it a little bit better. A little closer. Just give it a minute to focus. Ooh, hello. Okay. And then rinse out my liner brush. I'm going to tap it on my paper towel just because I don't want too much water. Again, these paints will move because they are more fluid, and they'll really move if you have water. But sometimes it doesn't stick as well if you have too much water. All right, so again, I just tapped it off on my paper towel, and I'm going to brush around the little eye there. Okay. And after doing that, I see that my black is a little on the small side and it's kind of wonky. So I'm just going to come back because I'm impatient. I'm not even going to let it dry. I'm just going to round out that one side. And then when my white is still wet, I'm just going to rinse my brush, dry it off, pick up a tiny touch of ultramarine blue, laid some on, wiped my brush off, and I'm just going to like blend that slightly into the white. If you're afraid of getting into the black, you can hit it with your heat tool. She says, as she does. No, I loved the way his eye turned out with the blue, the darker blue at the bottom, cobalt at the top. And again, because they're transparent, when they dry, you're going to see that glow from the white underneath. That's the other thing, let me tell you guys too, when I'm painting with these paints, I tend not to base coat in large areas with my white paint. So with the titanium white, just because, and even though this one isn't that expensive, I think it retails for, I don't know, $3 or something like that. I use gesso because again, this has a little bit of that satin sheen finish to it. And sometimes when you go to lay things on top of it in big areas when it's dry, it's a little bit slick. So plus I don't want to, you know, I'd rather save this and use my gesso that's not that expensive and base coat in areas that need to be white. All right, so my eye is dry. Hopefully yours is too. If not, hit it with the heat tool. A little orange, a little white. Just a little swipe of color. So it's not in a full circle. I just did like a C stroke on the top, a C stroke on the bottom, but they don't really connect. And it's really, really bright, huh? Right now, it's like in your face bright. But what's going to tone that down is the quinacridone gold that goes on top. The black wasn't dry there. Again, at any point, if you feel like it needs to be a little bit drier, hit it with the heat tool. So again, a little white around the eye, some ultramarine blue along the bottom, cobalt teal hue along the top, black in the center. Then I put a little bit of the cad orange with a little white. C stroke along the top, C stroke along the bottom. And then I'm going to repeat that step with some quinacridone gold on that orange, just a little. I could eat my finger. Okay. So after you get the cad orange and a little white on, dry it a little bit, and then a little bit of the quinacridone gold, tiniest touch of white. Just go right over the orange again. Give you a minute to finish that and get it dry. Okay. The little dots for his eye on the black are just kind of haphazard white little tiny dots. I have two that kind of are on the back end of the center here. So it's not dead center. I'd say it's on the kind of the right middle of his eye. I have a couple up here. And then I just took that liner brush and did this. So look at the screen for me for just a second. I just did a couple little swipes of white on the blue, just to kind of soften those just a little bit. You can do a little bit on the orange as well. But if you look at the finished picture, I think, let me see mine. So even on the finished picture, I think you can see that pretty well where there's wider areas. That's just where I pulled the liner brush right over a little of the blue, upper, lower, and a little bit of the orange. Okay, hold it up and look at it. Make sure it's how you want it. Okay. And when you're done with that, you can rinse your brush out. Okay. Just going through the pictures, see how many heads are down, how many are up. You ready? Janet looks so good. So, so good.
piece is amazing, Sandy.
Yeah.
It is.
So after I did the next little bit, I was super excited and I loved how it showed up in your pattern packet. So if you printed that off, the top picture on page 7 is where you can see the tiny little shimmers start to build. And so I used, again, this little polka dot stencil with the pearls, the white pearls color. And it showed up good, I think, on the pattern packet, but in person, it's one of those things that's like, I mean, it's almost like you could just flick it with your finger, that little tiny flake or scaly bit on a fish. It just added that wow to it. So again, with your stencil brush, you want to make sure you dry it off well. And I didn't do this everywhere. Again, it kind of loses its, you know, oomph when you put it everywhere. But I'm going to keep it low like I did the titanium white, goodness gracious, the Payne's gray. I'm going to keep that a little bit more on the lower side towards the center, like you can see on that picture, and a little bit back towards his back fin with just the white pearl. And again, loading your stencil brush up, wiping it off, soft circular motion. Clockwise, counterclockwise. Oh. Can you see that on the camera? Now, I like to do this when I stencil. I don't know why. But I like to put my hand down because it does a couple of things. It kind of softens the look. And it lifts up any excess paint. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up again. But what I want to see the rose, because that's how the stencil is. I'm just going to, I almost like just throw it down because I don't want it to line up again. I want to come back with some stencil dots here and there, like that. Just like that. And a little bit more there. Get it on his fin, just wipe it off, or outside the line.
Awesome. Okay, Miss Sandy, I hate to love and leave you, but it is the dinner hour here and I have a hungry man.
Thank you so much for joining us, Tracy.
Happy to. Wish I could watch the rest. I will catch the recording though.
Thank you, darling. Appreciate it.
Bye, Tracy.
Take care, Lana. Talk to you soon.
Now, the fix for this, like if you're like, oh, that's just so white, wait till you put the glitter on, okay? But if you're feeling like that's super, super bright and it's aggravating you, a wash of color over it, a wash of those transparent colors over it will tone it down. But I like the iridescent shimmer of the pearls, so I'm leaving it.
Diane asked, are you using white or pearl?
I'm using the pearl, Snow White pearl. Pearls, Snow White. Okay, so a little bit here and there, and then just wipe that off your brush. No need to wash your stencil brush again because we're going to put some bubbles into the background. But hopefully you're sitting in your studio going, ooh, ah, look at that. Pretty iridescent color. All righty. So on the, hopefully you're done with that. On the What color do you have on the little thing under his belly? This little thingy right down here is like a tiny, tiny little fin. It actually has still some of the background blue on it, Chris, but I have a little bit of orange and white on it as well. Let me show you my original up close. See how it's got some blue on it and some orange on it, but you see so little of it that you just don't want it to be bright orange. So if it's just bright orange, pull a little bit of that ultramarine blue onto it. Look at that glitter. And then you can see the little dots underneath with the pearl color.
Mhm.
Okay, so on this fin right here, I have a little bit, so on my liner brush, a little orange and a little white. And ever so lightly, because I don't want this to be too bright, but I do want to add a little bit of a highlight from this right here back. So right on the edge of his fin, and I'm not covering up all the dark. I'm just, oops, too bright, move it with your finger. I'm just pulling a couple of lines. A little bit of water in your brush to make it move. Cad orange hue and white. It's too bright, wipe it with your finger. And then try not to do too many. Okay. I have to lift it up for just a second.
Sandy,
Yes.
someone would like for you to repeat what you just did.
Okay, cool. So right here on the edge of the orange fin, with my liner brush, it's got water in it. I loaded some cad orange, a little bit of white, slightly mix those on your palette. And then right from the edge, I just pulled back tiny little lines. But I don't want to pull so many that you lose all this pretty dark color that we put on earlier. You just want to highlight a couple of those sections of orange. And I'm also not going all the way over to here. Okay, so I'm pulling, and as I'm pulling, I'm swiping and lift, almost like you're flicking the brush. Okay, so finish that up. I'm going to give you a couple more minutes. Then we're going to get into some fun stuff, splattering paint, stenciling on some bubbles. The very last thing we're going to do, if you have the holographic illusions glitter, is add that glitter, because it's going to go everywhere if we do it too soon. So just a little bit of cad orange and white on the edge of these fins right here on the bottom. Okay. Hold up a minute. So on this back fin, and the top fin. Same thing. If you feel like you didn't get, you know, it's just looking very similar to the background, you can also take a little bit of the ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, and just from the edge, you can pull a couple little tiny white lines. Don't go all the way down into here because we're going to reshade this. But you know, when we did the chisel strokes there, making that texture, I feel like mine got light enough, but in a couple areas it didn't. So ultramarine blue, a little bit of white. You can do the same thing there that you did with the orange on this fin. Same up here. Again, it will help separate those blues from the blue in the background. Okay. Let me pull out here. Okay. So what I did in the background, I wanted there to be a lot of splatter, just to, you know, have it darker in some areas, lighter in some areas. So see all these dark little splotches and spots? This one, I had it wet in that area. And so the black kind of spread out a little bit, and I liked it, so I left it. And then up here, let me see if I can hold it up so that you don't, well, the rays coming in that with the yellow and white's really making it white. But so I have white splatter, and then I have black splatter, blue splatter. The very last thing I did before I put the glitter on was I put these in, okay, at the very, very end. So we're not going to do that yet. All this little splatter, there's green. I loved that green in the background. Again, it just kind of helped tie in the green and the seaweed. So on your palette, you need a little bit of sap green, freshen up your titanium white if you need to. And freshen up your black if you need to. A little bit of green gold. And if you need a little more of the ultramarine blue, we're not going to use a lot, but if you need a little bit more of that. Alrighty. And a little bit more of Payne's Gray. So if you need a little more Payne's Gray on your palette, go ahead and put a little bit more Payne's Gray. So Payne's Gray, black, ultramarine blue, a little bit of white, sap green, green gold. Green gold looks like a really pretty green color. It's okay. It's not real vivid and bright. So I like to add yellow to it to get like that candy apple green that you see in your background is a little bit of green, gold, and yellow. Sap green and the yellow make a beautiful color as well. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, either your number 12 flat or an angle brush, we're going to come in and we're going to darken up a little bit of this shading. So a little bit of dampness on your brush. I'm going to take my brush, load it on the corner, a little bit of Payne's Gray. I like to use Payne's Gray instead of black because black is a little harsh. So the Payne's Gray is just going to be a little bit softer for you. Now, right in here, I'm going to come in and I'm just going to do a little bit of a float right here at the base and see how I'm going from that first zigzag all the way to the second zigzag, just back and forth on my brush so that it's transparent. Nothing solid. I strengthened right in here again with kind of that zigzag. And I didn't want this one to be like right now, the way it's going on, it's super dark. So once I put this on, I'm just going to lay my hand on it very lightly, just to kind of soften that look. You could lay a paper towel on it if you don't want to get your hands dirty, but I don't know why you don't want to get your hands dirty. It's fun. Same thing with this guy right here. So basically at the base of each of the fins, try not to make any straight lines.
You're using Payne's Gray, is that correct?
Yes, Payne's Gray. Sorry, I have to lift it up for a minute. That's the hazard of not, I usually don't paint flat. I usually stand with it in front of me. So I never know if it's going to be straight or off or wonky or if I'm sitting. Okay. The only other area where I shaded that I thought, oh, maybe it needs it is if right underneath here, if you feel like your shading kind of went away a little too much, you could add just a little bit more right under the fish. And then again, just kind of mush it around so it doesn't look like a line. Mine kind of sunk in, soaked in just a little. And this is one of those things when you're looking at it up close, you're like, oh, that's so dark. But when you hold it back, it really is the thing that separates and makes things pop. So don't be too conservative with that. Okay. So we got all those colors out on our palette. You need a clean paper towel that you'll be able to move around to keep some of the splatter off of your fish. If it gets on your fish while it is wet, you can take a wet brush and remove some of that. I do have some black splatter that hit my fish and I liked it, so I left it, but I don't have a lot of splatter on my fish, okay? So I'm gonna start with a little bit of black and my number 12 brush. And this is gonna be one of those things that you get to add as much or as little as you want. So let me get my piece so that you guys can see the whole thing. All right. Okay. So I like to splatter. You can use a toothbrush if you like to. Chris Hoy showed this really amazing little splatter brush. I think it's by Ranger. But I like to just use like a number 12 flat that's wet and straight from my water basin. I'll come over here to my black paint and load up. And then I'm going to take the handle of another brush and wherever, so let me do it down here if you want to look at the screen for a second. Wherever the head of this brush is, that's where it's going to splatter, okay? Again, if you want to cover up part of your fish, by all means cover up part of your fish. So the middle of this brush to the middle of this brush, and I know I want some black here. Oh, that's kind of scary. A little bit of black there. I want some black up here and a little bit of black over here. And I'm just going to move that, make sure I don't end up with a line. Now, I love that big area there that's splattered. I'm going to let it sit for a minute. And then I can take a paper towel and very lightly press it. I don't have to do that on all of them. Now, what that's going to do for you, let me hold it up so you can see. See how there's darker dots and lighter dots? So where it's darker, I didn't press with the paper towel. Where it's lighter, the paper towel picked up a little bit of that color. So I think you just get a really pretty effect when you have a variation in the colors, whether they're dark or light, okay? So that's the black. Give you a minute to do that. Again, if you don't want it on your fish, wipe it off while it's wet, but I didn't mind the black specks. I thought they added something to it. Okay, so when you're done with the black, you're going to rinse out your brush. You're going to load up a little bit of sap green, green gold, Hansa yellow light. So on my brush, this is all I did. I went sap green, green gold, Hansa yellow light. Somewhere on my palette, I'm just going to kind of tap it. If you wanted a little bit yellow, more yellowier, add a little bit more of the Hansa yellow light. And I didn't want a lot of this green everywhere, but I did again feel like it gave the illusion or appearance that there was more seaweed. So I have some up here. Actually gonna add a little bit more of the, there we go. Little down here. And remember, wherever the head of your brush is, when you're splattering, that's where the paint's going to go. So we don't want to make it look like it's snow and greenery. We just want to add it here and there. I'm going to pick up a little bit of sap green just on its own. Maybe add some of that in there. And again, just going to kind of let it hang out for a minute. And then I might touch it with paper towel, not on all of them, but on some. Another thing you can do if you're like, oh, I just like a little too much, you can take your Mr. bottle and you can spritz it. What that's going to do is it's going to make it spread even further. So that was sap green, green gold, Hansa yellow light. I didn't brush it down and mix it to one color. All three of those colors are on my brush. Splattered that here and there, let it sit for a minute. Maybe take a paper towel. You can even spritz it with water. Kind of spread it out a little. I came back with just a little bit of sap green, splattered that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with white. Okay, so rinse your brush out really well. And again, cover up your fish if you don't want any on the fish. Try not to go overboard. And again, you can let those sit for a minute. Lightly touch them. Oh, just love that look. I just love the way it makes it look like it's stained with splatter instead of sitting on the surface with a heavy dot of paint.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Thank you. And every time you do this, it's going to look different because your splatter is going to go where your splatter goes. You can't really control it. You can try and control it, but you can't really control it. Just have fun with it. And, you know, again, if it's too much, spritz it with water, blot it with a paper towel, and it'll kind of soften that look. So the last color I did was a little bit of ultramarine blue. I just loved those hints of that darker color. I have some up in here, which might not show up as much because on this piece, unlike my other piece, it's a little bit darker in that area. But I have a little bit of that splatter of blue down here, over there.
It's showing up pretty good.
Oh, good. And then again, you can kind of let it sit a minute and just lightly touch it. If your background is really, really light, you know, like depending on how much of the turquoise you let run off in the very beginning when we did the background, splattering with that Shimmer Mr. Turquoise can look really pretty too. Okay. We've got lots of heads down splattering. Give you guys a couple minutes. Just like Colette did. You guys hold it up, hold it back, look at it, see if it needs some splatter somewhere. Sometimes if you've got it like a big paper towel over it, you might end up with, you know, where it stops. So you can come back and add more. Excuse me. Okay. And since we touched it with the paper towel, you should be okay and dry, but probably not everywhere. So go ahead and hit it with the heat tool. Or lay a paper towel on it and just touch it lightly. Okay. So just kind of look up when you're done splattering. I'm just going to kind of go through the gallery, and if you guys are looking up, I know you're ready to move on. Make sure you're breathing. That's pretty, Janet. Wow. Really nice. I mean, I can see the layers on y'all's cameras too, as you're showing your pictures throughout just how everything glows. Oh yeah, Stephanie. Oh, pretty shine, Barb. Virginia, that looks so good. Yes, Chris. Pretty, pretty, pretty. Oh, and look at you. I love the background too. You've got some nice streaks in there. Again, this because it's not exact, you know, everyone's backgrounds are going to be different. Same premise, but really pretty, Laura. Saw it as your Heather. Wow, Wendy. Oh, guys, I mean, the shine on them is coming through on the camera. So nice. Let me see, Marianne. I missed you. Ooh, nice shine. Yeah, pretty, 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 pretty. Oh, nice, Kathy. Guys, they're looking so good. Pretty, Peg. Okay, so last couple things on the fish. If you got the Mezzaluna brush, or if you have a stiff brush that you like to dry brush with, that's what we're going to do now. If you don't have this brush or a stiff brush, you can use a flat brush. I'll show you both ways. Hello, let's zoom out. You about swam into your living rooms there. Okay. Well, let me come in a little bit more. Because right in here, so after I got done painting him, I still felt like he needed some shine on him other than the glitter, of course. But like on his lip, around his eye here and back, a tiny touch on his fin here, I dry brushed some cobalt teal hue and white because I just felt like he needed to look a little bit more shapely, and that highlighting of that gave him a little bit more of that shape. So on my palette, again, if you have this Mezzaluna brush or a dry brush, I will show you that, and then I'll show you a flat brush technique if you don't. So a little bit of cobalt, a little bit of white, mix that on your palette. Take a clean paper towel, wipe a lot of it off. I have more white than I do cobalt, okay? So more white than cobalt. And so with this brush, if you'll look at the screen for me for just a minute, again, I wanted there to be a little brightness on his mouth right here. Can you see the difference there and how that just shines? And then around his eye here. So you can hear the brush kind of scraping. It has very, very, very little paint on it. All right, load it up really good. Dry it off on your paper towel, almost all the paint off, because believe me, you still have paint in that brush. And I just wanted to give him a little highlight, and it just goes back till about the middle of his little area right here. I don't go all the way back. And then if you feel like it's a little too white, you can just pick up the cobalt teal hue. That's going to be really pretty over that white. but just try and move it around. So I'm doing a soft circular motion. I'm not just going like this back and forth, or you end up with a line. That soft circular motion is going to give you a nice little dry brush where you need it. Okay, if you're using a flat brush, let me do like a number 8 flat, if you've got a number 8 flat, or whatever small flat brush you have. Okay, so I'm not going to get it wet. Again, I'll load it up with the cobalt, a little bit of white, mix it on my palette, more white than cobalt, wipe almost all of it off on the paper towel, and the same thing, you're just going to dry brush. I don't know if you can hear that scrape, but there's hardly any paint on my brush, and it's just skimming the surface and adding some of that brightness. Now, because I showed you guys both techniques, now I feel like it's super duper white right there. The fix is a little wash of cobalt teal hue. And I still have that white that's going to shine underneath. Okay. So I dry brush a little bit on there. And then I did want the front of this fin right here to be nice and bright. So I added a little bit here. Off screen. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Right there. Just to kind of get a little bit of that shine. Just try not to make any kind of solid straight line. Now he looks like he's smiling. Feel like it's too white, pick up a little bit of cobalt teal hue, and dry brush that right over the white. I'm loving him. The one last place that I have just a tiny touch of a highlight, it's not really highlight as much as it just breaks up all the blue, is right here. So there's kind of like that little divot. So he's got just a little small dry brush of color right there. Again, to kind of give that appearance that it dips
I'm
down
back.
there. Pardon?
Tracy's back.
There we go, right here. Okay, so a little on his mouth, a little behind his eye. I just think that makes a huge difference in his appearance. A little on the front of this fin, a little right there in the dip on his back where it meets his little fin back there. Again, if you feel like you got it too white or too light, take a little wet brush, little cobalt teal hue. You can just do a little bit of a wash over it. Okay. All right, guys. So let's get our bubbles stencil. So I have this one and the bigger polka dot stencil. Which I have to find. And let me just show you on my original. And hopefully you'll see this in the finished picture you have as well. So I love the bubbles, but bubbles like this, if I put them everywhere, would have looked like there were a lot of fish everywhere, because these type bubbles are air bubbles, right? But I felt like it needed something still with the circles on the scales and the circles from the bubbles. And one of my favorite stencils is Punchinella. Not sure if you know what Punchinella is, but also this this stencil where the polka dots are a little bit closer to each other. So you'll see at the bottom of my piece, let's see if I can turn it. See down here at the bottom where you can see some of those, they're very, very faint. So I added some down here, some over here, my bubbles up here. So down here, I also took the little, I almost said snowflake, hello, the little bubbles, and I added the, you know, little polka dots and kind of layered that down here. So kind of artistic license. You can look at your picture and do. I'm going to show you where I'm going to put it. If you want to put it somewhere different, by all means, you can. Okay. So I'm going to start with white. So I'm going to load up my brush with white, swirl it around on my palette, wipe almost all of it off on a paper towel, because I want these very subtle, very subtle. So my bubbles, kind of position it where you can get maybe some of the smaller bubbles in there. Like that one right there is huge. I'm not going to use that one, but you can flip it over and kind of maneuver it so that you get maybe one of these medium-sized bubbles, some of these smaller bubbles, soft circular motion right there. Love that.
Love it.
So I just have titanium white on my stencil brush, load it up, wipe almost all of it off. Arrange your bubble stencil where you can get a medium-sized bubble, some of those smaller bubbles.
Super cool.
And then without reloading my brush, I added a little bit of that over here too. So kind of on that right corner coming off the canvas, I just have a little bit of, almost like there's a fish hanging out over here that you can't see.
Cool.
Oh, Linda, that's a nice stencil too. Yeah, yeah, little bubble stencil, perfect. Okay, and then in the other places is this, I didn't reload my brush. I have enough paint on there. See how I'm rubbing it? Put it on, rub it. If you feel like you get too much. Soft circular motion. I have it in a few places down here. Don't have it all just within, have it coming off the edge as well. And it's just titanium white. Very little color. Haven't reloaded my brush at all. And again, if you want to layer some of those tinier polka dots with those larger ones, you can. That's going in a soft circular motion and trying to not concentrate on the rows will help give you more of an unexact line of dots. So instead of just going like this or pouncing, I can't pounce it. I have arthritis in my hand and it's always hurt my hand. So I tend to do this soft circular motion. The other thing is it gives you a dusting of color instead of like heavy color. So the dusting of color, I'm going to be able to wash over it. If you get too much, you simply wash blue over it. Okay, now I am out of color. And to that same brush, I'm going to pick up just a little bit of the pearls. So I have titanium white on my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the pearl. Work it in, wipe it off. And not everywhere, but just in a couple of places. Add some of that pearl because depending on how the light hits it, you're going to get a really pretty shimmer in the background. So titanium white to begin with. A little bit of the pearls. Added to the same brush. I could just sit here and go all day, so I'm going to stop.
Sandy, can you pull your canvas down just a little bit? We can't see the very top. There we go. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll zoom out too a little. Well. Okay. So here and there, just not everywhere. It's awesome seeing all the stuff behind you guys. Your studios, your living room, your creative space. Sandra Schmidt, I've sat at that table before with you. All right. Oops. Can you still see me? Okay. All right, all right, all right. So let's add another layer to this piece by adding some of that seaweed. And again, I didn't want it to be overwhelming. If I'd come in with like solid color of seaweed, I don't know, it just would have, I think it would have taken away from the piece. So these are very, very transparent. If you look at the seaweed that goes over his back fin, you can see his fin still. So let me show you how I did those. I did sap green, some green, gold, and white, sap green, Hansa yellow light and white. It's going to make a pretty candy apple green color. And then the brown looking one, I just wiped off my brush and added a little bit of quinacridone gold. And of course my brush is wet so that it remains transparent. So I'm going to get my number 12 flat. Let me show you my palette. So I have a little bit of green, sap green, I'm out of Hansa yellow light, so let me get some of that. I could use the medium, but there's just not the brightness to it. So I want that bright Hansa yellow light and a little bit of white. Just a touch of white, not too much. The white is going to soften those colors. Too much will make it more opaque. So sap green, Hansa yellow light, little touch of white. So I'm seeing, you know, just from a couple of you from where you're sitting and stuff. If you can't splatter right now your colors, that's fine. You can always go back and add more splatter. Okay, you just want to cover up. So I would splatter before you put the glitter on your fish, if you have the glitter, or because it will be wet for a little while. It's going to take a little bit longer for it to set up. So, and the other thing is you can splatter even after you've done the seaweed. Again, because we're using transparent colors and stuff, it will just be, it will look okay. Okay, so you don't have to splatter and then do the seaweed. You can do seaweed and then splatter. So my number 12 flat, sap green, Hansa yellow light, touch of white, mix that on my palette, not to one color, but just, you know, enough. And then I'm going to start at the bottom of my canvas. I'm just going to start on the right side so that you can see. Oh goodness, I got something in my brush. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom with the flat of my brush, and I'm going to pull, and then I'm going to stand it up on the chisel, and then I'm going to go flat, and then I'm going to stand it up on the chisel and slide. Hopefully you can see that.
Yes.
Come back. I just have it going right off the edge. And I'll reload and do another little, so you can do it one of two ways. This way I started at the bottom. You can slide on the chisel, go flat, slide, go flat. It's a great way to make ribbon too. And that's a little too separated. So just take your finger and wipe it off if you want to. There we go. I want them to touch. I think I'll add another little green one over here. And I'm using my 12. If you don't want them to be real big, just don't put as much pressure on the brush when you push to the flat of your brush. So slide on the chisel, slightly turn it to the flat, slide on the chisel, slightly turn it to the flat. If you don't push real hard, you won't have big stroke. So I'm not going to rinse my brush, but I am going to pick up a little touch of water and some quinacridone gold. And again, I'm going to do the same thing and just add. I loved this brown one that went all the way up off the top. Slid down. So to my dirty brush, I just added a little bit of water, some quinacridone gold, paint a little brown seaweed. And on that side, I have three little brown, kind of intermingled. They don't have to go exactly where mine are. You just want them to look like they're moving, not stiff. We're getting there. All right.
Loving it.
Yeah. And then over on the left-hand side, I just have one green and two of the browns. Since I already have the quinacridone gold on my brush, I'm just going to paint a couple of those. And this, I didn't have it go, it might come, like the green one comes to his mouth, but I don't have anything go past that because I felt like this was my height. I didn't want you to have to look here. This is where your eye would have gone. Right here, if I had had them both long on both sides. Whereas this gives him some space to be swimming around. So just a couple of brown ones on this side. Load up some of that green on your dirty brush and paint a green one. Splatter right there. All right. So anyone have any questions right now? That again, just sap green, Hansa yellow light, touch of white. You can add a little bit of that green gold if you want. It's a little bit of a dull color. Then to your dirty brush, a little bit of quinacridone gold. Pull a couple of those on the left, 3 on the right, or as many as you want. Excuse me. Can't wait to see all of them. I can't wait for you guys to hold them up. And if you post them on, you know, Facebook, which I hope you do, or Instagram or whatever, please tag me so I can see them. Pretty please.
Janet's holding hers up for you, Sandy.
Let me scroll to the gallery view. Oh, pretty. Oh, nice, Sandra. Let's see. That's beautiful, Janet. Oh, yes, so nice. Wendy. Guys, they have such a pretty glow. That's gorgeous, Colette.
That's good.
Beautiful, Stephanie. Oh, yes, Shamala looks good. Oh, love the color in the background, too. Kathy, beautiful. Because, you know, when the gesso, however it's hitting y'all's gesso, too, you're getting some really cool texture. Very pretty, Chris. Y'all seaweed looks good and light and transparent. All righty. Go over the sides that have spray on them regarding gesso. Absolutely. So Chris wanted to see my side here. I have a little bit on my finished one. The whole thing has blue. The only thing, I didn't do the bottom, I just realized. But these are so nice, they can actually sit up. So like if you got a credenza or something, it doesn't have to go on the wall. You know, it can stand up because it's sturdy enough. All right, so give those a little bit of a quick dry if you've got a hair dryer or a heat tool. just to make sure that they're dry. I'm going to show you again, because this is all about the layering. For your phone, that might not work. This one might work. Okay, so go ahead and rinse your brush. Okay, so I'm going to take my number 12. I'm going to load it up with white, so it's wet. And you're going to go, why are we doing this again? Well, because there's layers. So let me get back to my, so I can make sure I'm showing you. Okay, so on my finished one, see how there's white splatter over the seaweed? And then we also have white splatter in the background. Well, if I don't put anything over the seaweed looks like it's sitting right on top. Well, we want to make it look like it's in the water. So I'm going to add a little bit of white splatter. Again, using my number 12, very wet. And it is tapped all over my face. Okay, I just felt it splatter. So, okay, so a little down here. I'm going to do a little over here. Maybe a little, not too much. I don't want to cover the whole thing. I just want to add some of that splatter to give the appearance that it is in the water and not right on top of our canvas. Let it sit for a minute. Lightly touch it. Lightly touch. Okay. You could also even put a stencil over that. On mine, it does look like on the left side, I put a little bit of the polka dot stencil, but my polka dots are coming through, I think, really pretty. Like in here, that it doesn't need it. But by all means, you can always stencil a little bit right over some of those seaweed bits. So this was a piece that once I got done with it and I put the glitter on it and I kind of set it back, you know, just to kind of evaluate it, look at it, see if it needed anything. I just felt like it was nice, but I wanted to make it amazing. So I think the thing that kind of took it to amazing, in my opinion, if I can say that, are the sun rays that were coming from the top. I just thought that added, I mean, it like put the fish in the water. Before he was just there on a canvas. So these little rays of sun coming through, I did with the Mezzaluna brush, and I dry brushed them in. So if you added splatter, go ahead and finish that, touch it with a paper towel, get it to dry. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see this up here. And it's not real noticeable, but I do have a ray of sun that goes over him. And then I have a ray of sun that goes behind him. There again, he kind of puts him into the water. So I'm going to move this so I can see my screen. So I'm going to do the top first. Pull that down enough so you guys can see it. Okay, so again, I'm using the Mezzaluna brush, medium. You could even use a stencil brush if you have a small stencil brush. Something that's stiff, that's going to scrape that color into place. the word left me for a minute. So paper towel, some Hansa yellow light, some clean Hansa yellow light, not with green, some white, my Hansa yellow light has green in it, so I'm going to get out some new. So I have more white than Hansa yellow light. Okay. So see the difference? This one had Hansa yellow light and a little green in it from when we did the seaweed. So I wiped off my brush really well. Hansa yellow light, some white. So right up in here, I'm going to pull down. So they're coming kind of like in a V. So if I do kind of a V shape here, maybe one in the middle, they're going to be a little yellow at first. Load up more, wipe it off. A little bit of that V shape. It's easier to build up the layers than to take off a whole bunch of color. Okay. Just kind of get, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. And between those lines, from the edge, I just pulled some of that color in between those lines as well. I didn't want it just to be lines of yellow. I want some of this sun, almost like it's right there at the top of the water. So right from the edge, I'm just pulling my brush and letting it skim the surface in between those lines, right over those lines. Okay, so once you get those along the top, I have a couple that are coming from, let me show you at the top first. So if you look at the screen for me for just a minute, even if you're not doing this, done doing the top ones. Okay, so see these that are coming from the right? I'm going to come down here and I'm going to add one that's going behind the fish right here. So just kind of follow that line, like one that would be a little bit of a sun ray right there. I think mine's a little bit lower than my original, but that's fine. All good. No, it does show up on there. I wasn't sure if it was going to show up on here. But do you see the one we just put in right here on the back side? And then there's one that goes right here, right over the fish. Hopefully you can see that. But I didn't want it to be a solid line. Of course, it would break up in the water a little. So definitely right here over that orange. So about right in here, I'd have right on his body coming off. Again, it's that yellow with white mixture. Actually, it's more white than yellow. And that one just kind of goes right on his body and down. They're really going to start showing up when we add more white. Okay. In fact, after I did that the first time, when I put the lines in, I thought, oh my gosh, I think I just messed it up. But because it's just a dusting, I could have always put blue over it. But then when I put the white on, oh, it just kind of sings. So once you get all those on with your yellow and white, you want to take your brush, wipe it off, load it up with just white, swirl it around on your, which isn't just white because you still have a little bit of yellow in your brush, but we're not adding any more yellow. If we had just done white to begin with, you wouldn't have that really pretty glow, and that yellow is what gives it that really pretty glow. Okay, so again, up here, I want to hold my brush and just kind of flick it. I don't want to go from the top to the bottom with just white. Then in between each, too much, because I didn't wipe off my brush. In between, just like we did with the yellow, you want to do the same thing with the white. So we're just going to highlight what we put on, brighten them up, put the white on, wipe it off. Still feeling like that's a little on the bright side, so I'm going to take a little paper towel and get some of that off. Again, the cool thing about dry brushing is you can fix it. It's just a dusting of color. Remember I said, you know, if you feel like, oh, it's a little too bright, especially this one here, you can take a little bit of your background color, a little bit of that cobalt teal hue, and you just do a little wash over it. The other thing that's going to break this guy up right here is our glitter. When we put that glitter over it, it's going to kind of help it not be such a straight line. Okay, this is one of those things too, you want to hold it back and look at it. Hold it back and look. They're still looking a little yellow. Wipe off your brush, pick up some white. We don't want it to look like he has an arrow going through him.
Looks great.
Thank you. And then the last thing, well, I'll say you can do another thing if you wanted to. If you feel like this is a little too much up here, a little splatter over it will help tone it down. A little splatter of white. Tiny little splatter of black. Again, it's about those layers. The other thing is with the glitter, I wanted there to be, I wish I had something that was fully covered with this Illusions because it's amazing. And I do, I just don't know where it's at. But I didn't want to cover the whole fish. I just wanted there to be kind of a dusting of it. So that's exactly what I did with it. I laid it out on him, kind of brushed it around. It's going to come out milky, and then it dries crystal clear. So I didn't really put a lot up near his head or eye or anything like that. I kind of kept it back towards the middle. Not a whole bunch on the edge either. You can always add more when you get done, but notice how I'm just spreading it out. Kind of here and there, but not everywhere. Okay, so again, when that dries, it'll be crystal clear, not milky at all. If you feel like you need to add a little more splatter over your rays, you can add some of the splatter over your rays of sunlight coming through. Laura said, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. That's one of my favorite books growing up, when my kids were growing up. I would read that. That and Are You My Mother? The one with the, I don't remember what it was, but Are You My Mother? I remember that Dr. Seuss book. All right. I can't wait to see them. So if you're waiting on the glitter, oh, nice, Janet. Wow, super pretty. Just hold it back, look at it. Again, if anything's bugging you, put a splatter or a stencil over it. Not over the whole fish, but over like the sun ray or the, the sun's coming up from the top. if you need to tone this down at all where it comes into the water, a little bit of wash with one of the blue colors. I think the cobalt teal hue will look pretty. Let me see, Miss Chris. Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. Oh, so pretty, Laura. Y'all, it has such a pretty shine. Nice shimmer and shine there. Let's, ooh, Kathy, look at that. Those rays coming down. Beautiful. So pretty, Heather. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Does anyone have any questions that you want to put into the chat? In just a minute, I'm going to take everybody off mute, but it is still 4:39. I think my pupil needs to be bigger. What do you think? Let me see, Steph. Oh, you know, I think your pupil is, from here in the camera, it looks good. It can't see a highlight on it. But when you hold it, I mean, from here, Stephanie, it looks big enough. If you think it needs to be bigger, make it just a touch bigger. I think when you put the orange on it, little white highlight, which I can't see on the camera view, I think it'll be fine. It'll be perfect. But again, if you feel like it needs to be bigger, make it just a touch bigger. Let me see, Linda. Oh, pretty. Very pretty. Wow, very nice. How are the rays? Let me see, Miss Wendy. They're looking like beautiful golden sun ray. Yeah. My only suggestion would be right in here. So right up here at the top. Can you guys see mine where my fingers? I'm off camera for me, but okay. So if you can see like a defined line of yellow here, maybe brush in a little bit of white on the sides here. So see how there's just a little bit more white that I can see on this side instead of it being a yellow line? Because what that's going to do is it's going to look like the sun's only coming in from here. So soften it just a little bit on the edge right there with a little bit of dry brushed white. And that will help open that sun up just a little bit more. Okay. Go back to gallery view. Oh, Virginia, beautiful. Beautiful. So same thing like with my Mezzaluna brushes. Oh, Colette, that looks so pretty. Yeah, it's so turquoisey and beautiful. Beautiful. Again, if you have any questions, put them on the side there. I was hoping Tracy would pop in. Are you on, Tracy Moreau?
She's on here. She's just muted.
Oh. So, let's see. Ooh, Shamala, very pretty. Yes, your sun rays are beautiful too.
I see Tracy's room. She's not sitting at her desk.
All right. Oh, Dixie, look at you. Beautiful. So on his eye, is his eye all black? You have a little orange and white on there? Yeah? Oh, not yet. Okay. Okay. Oh, Diane Williams. Oh, nice. Nice, nice, nice. So pretty. Barb, Sue Atkins wants to see yours. You have to bring it here. So the other thing on the rays, you know, again, hold it back, look at it. If you feel like you need to tone them down at all, put a little bit of that background color over them. It will tone it down just a little. So here's Barb's that she just handed me.
Wow. She did a great job.
Yeah, pretty, huh? You even got glitter on there. No, but they look good. Awesome. I wish all of you could walk up to me, or I could walk out to all of you and see.
Yeah.
Those that have taken classes with me before, I'm not one that sits. I like to move and walk around and see and touch and, you know, see how you guys are doing. All right. Let me see, Peg Farmer. Ooh. Very nice. All right. So as you guys, let's see, Anne. Oh, beautiful. So yes, beautiful. I love the sun rays. Okay, so I think we will, do you think we should unmute, Lana? I want it to be, but, or if we unmute and you guys can unmute yourself, can we do that? If you have a question? Are we able to do that, Lana?
I just unmuted them. The people who muted themselves, I couldn't unmute. So like Chris Wood and Colette,
Okay.
they'll have to unmute themselves.
Okay.
Judy, Julie, Marlene.
That's fine. I just want, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, I want you to feel like you can do that. Or if you need a little more clarification, or you want to show me something, or you need some suggestion, then feel free to unmute yourself and ask away.
Sandy, is my background more turquoise? Yours looks more blue.
So I love the background on your, what color did you use? Did you use a shimmer mister?
I did.
Okay.
I
So,
used the turquoise shimmer mister.
yep, I did the same.
Okay.
So it might just be a little bit darker in a couple spaces. And if you want to darken yours up anywhere, you can just take off the nozzle, tap it in, move
Okay.
it around, and you're done.
Okay. Like I like the turquoise. I like, you know.
Yeah, I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Laura Haverstraw, what are you laughing at up there? Y'all look like the Brady Bunch. I love the color. I think it's beautiful.
Okay.
All right, so let me move to the other side here and see. Shamala, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I don't like my sun rays. It's little
I think
like
they're-
a straight lines. It looks
Okay.
little.
Oh, I think they're very pretty. Again, what you can do is you can take that
Oh,
background color
beautiful.
and you can wash over it, but I think they're beautiful.
They
But
are.
Beautiful.
seeing it in person, it looks little. It looks like a lines.
Okay, so
It doesn't
yeah. So
look
you can
like
take,
your.
yeah, you can take your stencil brush with some white on it and just pull a
Okay.
few streaks to kind of break up, but I think they're beautiful. And if you feel like they're too bright still, you can tone them down with some of the background color.
It's
Okay?
beautiful.
I think it's very pretty.
It is
Very
beautiful.
pretty.
Very pretty.
Very,
Thank
very
you.
pretty.
Right.
You did good.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I need help with my rays.
All right, Peg, let me see.
Well,
Sometimes
a
your
lot,
picture,
but my rays I'm very unhappy with. Can
yeah,
you see it?
sometimes
Oh,
sometimes your picture goes away. Like I see you, but when you turn your, because you have a virtual background on, I can't see your painting.
oh, okay.
It doesn't show up.
Okay.
She
Well,
needs
never
to put
mind.
it directly in front.
Oh, put it in directly in front of you. Oh, there you go. Well, I can see his
Wait.
back fin.
Scoot
So,
it back just a little bit.
Back.
Front of your face.
A little bit more.
It needs to be in front of you.
In front of your face, Peg.
In front of your
Right
face.
to your face.
No, the
No,
screen.
now he's just swimming in the bay. And you went away. So I think it's just the virtual background, but you know what? We'll connect. Okay? We'll connect on camera, Peg. Yeah, I think if you changed your virtual background just to regular.
Yeah, I've got to go back and figure out how to do that.
Okay. I think down on share screen, and then there'll be an advanced setting that you could change it. So, all right. Anyone else?
There we go.
Oh, there you are. Let me see. Okay. Oh, okay. And so what don't you like
too
about
much
your wrist?
white.
That's nice. That's pretty.
No, I don't think you have too much white. My only suggestion would be in between the rays, I would take your stencil brush and just pull down like a swipe of white, just to kind of, because it looks like a line space. So right from,
So tell me again what to do.
okay, so right in between your lines, maybe just take a stencil brush with a little bit of white and just pull in like this. Pull in a little bit of white.
Okay.
Just a touch of white, but I think they're beautiful.
Well, this has been a fun afternoon. It really
Yeah.
has.
Well, thank you.
Yes, it has.
It has just been
a
great.
little. Well, I appreciate it.
Great
So
class.
let me look here. Anyone else have a question? Janet, beautiful. Oh, Chris, so pretty. I love y'all's backgrounds are amazing too.
Those are fun.
Beautiful.
And they're all different.
Is the sunrise okay?
Yeah, I think your sunrays are beautiful.
Thank you.
Kathy Murphy, yeah. Oh, your camera just went out.
Yeah, I
Turned
got
herself.
5%.
Yes, beautiful. So pretty.
Sandy, do you think my background is too dark?
Oh, in fact, I love that darker blue up in the corner on the left and on the right.
Okay.
Beautiful.
I still have to do my spattering. I'm not really located. I'll have to take it out in my studio and do it.
Right.
There's
And
too
you've
much.
got an amazing studio. Mary Wilson, that looks beautiful. Beautiful, Mary.
Thank you.
All right.
I bet you when you paint this, it's different every time.
Every single time. And you know, you could use the same techniques. Every single time it's going to come out different. So
Yep.
anyway, so I'm going to switch. Did I miss anybody? Is there anybody that needed a question, has a question? Okay, like I said before, I'm going to flip this around. If you are doing it later, you know, fixing up some stuff, tweaking some stuff, do I look like I'm in dark now because my overhead light's off? Anything at all, please do not hesitate to email me. If we've got to jump on a Zoom real quick for me to show you something or a FaceTime, I'd much rather you come to me and be happy and excited about what you painted than to go to Facebook and be frustrated and aggravated, okay? If I'm just gonna put it out there honestly. I want you to be happy and excited about it. So I'm available, and I'm available after this class if you need some help tweaking or fixing or whatever, okay?
Okay.
No, it was a fun class. It was fun.
Thank you.
Very fun.
Very much.
Thank you. So I have to do a little shameful plug real quick. And so mark your calendars for October 17th and 18th. Hopefully you can join Lana Lamb and Tracy Moreau and myself and Marco Aguilar.
Oh,
We knew that would get
Finally, I got a response.
So October 17th and 18th, it's Autumn Fest 2020. We have a private Facebook group set up. I'm not seeing Tracy on her screen there, but Lana, if you want to show yours, Lana actually was the one that reached out to me and asked about, you know, would I be willing to do an event? And I'm like, Yeah. So, she'll show her picture, and I'm going to turn on my light because I look like I'm sitting in the dark.
Okay. Let me see if I can get my right camera.
Hi, Lana.
Oh,
Right.
beautiful.
Oh.
This is a gallery wrapped canvas,
Oh,
12 by 12, deep canvas.
Oh,
We're going to learn some water drops, a different kind of technique for the background, and I
Pretty?
think it's going to be a beautiful, fun design.
Oh, yes.
That's what I'm
Water drops?
Yeah.
Yep.
The water drops are so pretty.
Lana, are you using the premium acrylics or Americana?
This is just Americana.
Okay.
I
Wow,
prefer to
pretty.
use the
Media.
traditions paints, but yeah, this is just Americana. Trying to keep it where you guys can get the paints easier.
Yeah. Beautiful,
Pretty.
girlfriend. So,
Beautiful.
Teresa, thank you. Deb Trammell, thank you. Judy Thack, thank you guys so much for joining today. Okay, Mama.
Are they going to be 4-hour classes?
Yes,
They'll
they'll be
4
4 hours.
4-hour classes?
And the night before the classes on the Facebook group page, we'll have an event where we will get together and chat with you guys. If you have any questions, make sure you're ready for the classes, and we'll do some giveaways and stuff. So if you sign up for the classes, you don't want to miss the event that's going to be on the Facebook group page the night before.
What is the group page, Lana?
We haven't, it's
you
not
haven't done
public
it
yet.
yet?
It's still hidden.
Okay.
So once you sign up, then you'll be given access to the group page. And that's
Okay.
where, like, we can share pictures, and that's where
Yeah.
we'll have our live event the night before on the 16th.
Where can we go to sign up?
Oh, yeah.
So not just yet.
on my
You guys are the first people that we've told, the 4 of us. So you guys get, insider information. Insider information. So it's going to be on lanalam.com. It's not available just yet. It's going up soon, October 17th and 18th.
September 1st.
Yeah, September 1st. So the first day is Lana and Tracy, and the second day is myself and Marco. We're not starting super early in the morning so that our people on the West Coast can, cannot have to get up so early. But my piece, I'm going to bring it to the camera, but was selected to be taught at Vegas. I'm repainting it because it's on a smaller canvas, and I want it to be on a 6x6 instead of a 4x4. But it's twofold. It has
Wow.
So this is like a salt wash finish that you'll learn how to do on a dollar frame from Michaels.
Good.
And then the canvas, this one is a 4x4, but it's going to be done on a 6x6. And it looks like it's inset, but it's not. I shaded to make it look like it's inside the frame.
Oh, how fun.
So cute.
Love it.
Marco gonna do?
Marco is doing a seascape that he put online a couple weeks ago, and there were rave reviews.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Janet, that one.
Yeah.
So, and then
Tracy?
Tracy, I was hoping she'd pop on. She has an orchid mixed media piece. So, anyway, but you guys are the first ones that we've told. We did, I just thought since they're going to be on with me today, I thought it would be awesome to share that with you guys. So, hope you can join us.
So it's a Saturday.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So,
Fabulous.
The kind of meet and greets. 17th and 18th are the classes. The following weekend, I'm doing Christmas Fest with Chris Hoy. My project, Laura has seen a little bit of my project.
It's virtual. Is it in virtual or is it in person?
All Zoom.
Zoom. Oh, wow.
Yes. So we'll post all the information. I'll have it on my Facebook. You guys know I share and overshare. So,
Sure.
But anyway, I'm just looking at some of the comments, make sure I'm not missing anything. We have about 3 minutes left. Does anyone have any other questions or Do you want, you can email me, like I said, we can set up a time to answer any questions that maybe you
Tracy's
missed.
back.
Huh?
Tracy's back.
Tracy's
back.
See your piece.
You want to show your piece?
We were doing show and tell. There she is. There I am. Hi. Okay, go ahead.
This is the one I'm taking.
Oh,
Oh, like that.
beautiful. Beautiful.
Very nice.
Love it, love it, love it.
Lots of fun stuff in that one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. So
Like all
you
your
can sign up for one class, you can sign up for all 4 classes. If you sign up for all 4 classes, you actually save money. All of it will be available on Lana Lamb's website, but it'll be on all of our Facebook pages as well very soon. I just wanted you guys to have a save the date moment and have insider information since nobody else knows yet.
Okay.
Okay, and the date
We'll take
again?
it.
October 17th and 18th.
So noted.
It's a,
All
it's a
right.
weekend.
Save the date.
All right, guys.
It was a
Well, I can-
wonderful class.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, my
much. It
dear.
was nice seeing you again.
Sandy. Guys.
Thank you. Bye.
So very much. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you coming to paint and spend the day with me.
It's
And it was